Forget being patient. Odunze. And Washington takes the lead. My goodness, what a 1-2 punch from Penix.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Seam shot, Coleman. One-handed grab. Keon Coleman climbs the ladder. And it's a Florida State first down to the 22.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Oh, what a grab! What a highlight! Io Manor! Mind your manners, what a catch! Took it off of Travis Hunter's hat.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
One final shot. Fowler Nicolosi chucking it into the end zone. Everybody is there. Is it caught? Is it caught? Colorado State. Dallin Holker makes the catch. It's a miracle in Fort Collins.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
To the end zone. Tipped. And he caught it. It's touchdown.
Holy Toledo.
Stephon Jackson does it again.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Third down and goal. 6.5 in the quarter. And a touchdown. Tez Walker. His first touchdown catch as a Tar Heel.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
You know, you kind of go to bed the night before with an idea of what your lead story or lead topic might be on this show. And, of course, things change all the time, and especially back when realignment was an everyday conversation. And, of course, there was speculation, and there was also things that were happening. But today, it's about Michigan. And today, Ross Dellinger, David Smoak, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. This is 365 Sports. Ross Dellinger, and then many others nationally with the story that the NCAA is investigating the University of Michigan football team for what they call possible rule-breaking around in-person scouting of opponents. NCAA has alerted the Big Ten. The league confirmed to Yahoo Sports without revealing specifics. And the Big Ten, in fact, released their statement as well, and Garrett puts that up, that they are confirming that the NCAA has contacted them involving Michigan as possible ahead of schedule, in-person scouting, or whatever you want to call it, of an opponent that they have on their schedule.
It's been banned since 1994, so it's not like this is a new thing that coaches are trying to get around. And this is really curious for the NCAA in that, as we know, the adjudication of everything that they do takes forever. So say Michigan just rolls through and wins the national title, and then we find out we've got an Astros type cheating scandal, on our hands. Well, now you've got to go back and vacate and all that. And you knew it was happening in real time if you did. I mean, this is a real sticky wicket here. And, this is another thing that Jim Harbaugh doesn't seem all really that committed to the college game to me if he's like rolling the dice on stuff like this.
Well, I mean, I think that everybody tries to find what advantages they can. It's just that Jim Harbaugh seems to have a string of trying to find those advantages and getting busted for them. He's now been, whether it was the hamburger incident, which wasn't just hamburgers. They tried to play it off like it was just that, although it was very much going against the COVID rules at the time. Oops, my bad. And then now this, where, if you look at ESPN at least, there's an article linked from quite a while ago talking about the troubles with trying to hide signals on the sidelines. Like there's that article that's from a while back attached to the Harbaugh article from today. And so it's not a new phenomenon by any means. I think there's probably a lot of people who are, stumbling upon the story going, oh, I didn't realize that was illegal, or I didn't know that you couldn't do this or you couldn't do that. But yeah, there are very clearly some rules in place. There's a little oddity here and there that people are bringing up, like a random halftime interview where there's kind of a comment made by Greg Schiano of like, did he know something was going on? Or, little other snipes here and there that all of a sudden you look back on and you're like, oh, wait a second. There was definitely some people aware that, or thinking that there could be something going sideways or going awry that wasn't supposed to. So, just a really random story. I don't know if there was any hints on the Michigan side of things that something could be coming down. Maybe on their board sometimes that happens, that word gets out early, but wasn't expecting to see this type of a story or see it today. And, it's just another little thing with Michigan where it's small enough, I guess, that you could, in some people's eyes, go, oh, well, that's not why they're winning, or that's not why they're, whatever. But it's kind of like that recruiting thing, and going back to that of like, it's just small enough to try and push it off, but it's, when you add it all up, it's like, so he's finding lots of little ways to get an advantage and cheat. I mean, basically. Yeah. And so, interesting how that will be looked at by the NCAA or what the next steps are. He's already, got suspended earlier in the year for the recruiting violations and kind of just brushed that to the side at the time. But here's another thing. It's just like a lot of little things adding up.
I don't know, and I read at least a little bit of it. Is this from stealing signs based on others around the stadium, watching a team a week or 2 or 3 or 4 ahead of time, or is this an electronic issue?
I think it's probably a combination of several things, because I would think that if you're going to, take the chance of sending somebody to a game, that you're going to have some electronic, because you can say he sits there and he's watching signs and writing them down, but what happens when he goes, leaves? Is he somehow filming it? Is there something else going on?
Is this the New England Patriots type thing? I don't know.
I would think you'd have to be some kind of filming it, because otherwise you're just trying to do it all from memory, all this time. So
it just says in-person scouting in the report. So I don't think it gets into the depths of how they did it, or if they had like secret video recording glasses, or if they had a full-blown iPhone, X record. But it just says that, it was a, how did they phrase it? In-person scouting is the focus of the NCAA investigation. So that's what they left it at based on what I read earlier.
RG3 on his Twitter page in reaction to ESPN's story, and again, Ross Dellinger, I think, was the first, but then every team should be investigated. This is called scouting.
Now, but see, Robert's wrong.
I'm just giving you his take on
He's
this.
wrong. He doesn't know the rule. In 1994, all right, Jack wasn't even alive, okay? This is not a new rule. It's 1994 that in-person scouting has been banned. So it's not a new rule. And if coaches have been eschewing it since 1994 and getting away with it, then the real question is, who reported this? Because then it's one of those things that's been accepted practice, but not enforced. So I don't know. And that gets into another weird gray area of why is it a rule if you're not going to enforce it?
It's interesting because we do high school football. We do a lot of high school football. And every game that we broadcast, there is always a group of anywhere between 3 and 6 or 7, Garrett, scouts from the opposing team. That's been the way it is. I did not know that this was not something that happened in college football, so I'm dumb to it, so it's hard for me to comment.
Well, the difference would be in that high school football, you cannot trust that you're going to have film every week. There's not a
thing called huddle.
Yeah, well, but even still, like, you have to have access. And
there was some old stories about
old stories.
John Outlaw, Art Briles and company, when they played each other, that Outlaw didn't want to share tape, and so he went and found other teams that he knew, and so now
that there's huddle, and that makes it different. But there was no guarantee in college football for a very long time. You're going to get film of the other team. That's just how it was, because they didn't want to get into the Jim Tressel didn't want to send Lloyd Carr the video, and here we have a whole thing. Now you got to go get it from everybody else, and then all the other coaches are mad at Jim Tressel because he doesn't share video, and you have to do more work. It's just accepted practice. That's why this is such a kind of confusing thing. Also, high school scouts, there's not many signs to steal in high school. You're not going to pile on, with a kid
Well, I think it's a lot more complicated now than it might have been
but
back
you're
when
still
they didn't
not
want
going
to share film.
but
the Michigan State president released a statement on this as far as the information statement from interim president Teresa Woodruff. As we look forward to the football game this Saturday, they're playing Michigan. We are chagrined by the news of the NCAA investigation. We echo the Big Ten Conference commitment to integrity. The allegations are concerning, but...
Yeah, and I'm trying not to. I'm waiting for more details on what
Me
exactly
too.
happened because I've learned, especially with this latest war we've got, the misinformation on social media and particularly Twitter. I'm not calling it what it's actually called now. It's always going to be Twitter to me. There's just so much BS and bot stuff and what have you that it's impossible to try and find what's actually the truth. You know what I mean?
You might see a story about a bombing that was I hate to say it, that was 9 years ago. Or whatever. I get what you're saying.
There's just a lot of misinformation, and there has been for quite some time. And so it's hard to sort through and get what's really factual about what the allegations are because I've already seen, a guy basically trying to spoon feed Michigan fans for interaction saying, oh, it was just cheeseburgers, and now they're trying to witch hunt Harbaugh again. It's like, why? What would the purpose, what would the NCAA gain by taking down Harbaugh in some random witch hunt? What benefit would they get for that? There's none whatsoever to do something like that. So you have to sort through that kind of thing. And then you got to sort through the Harbaugh should be burned at the stake. And, here he is. He's a rep. And so there's a middle ground somewhere in there. And I need more details to figure out exactly what's going on because all you see is sign stealing or, scouting impermissibly. And it's hard to, based on what I've read at least so far, know exactly what that means. I mean, and so, is this the Astros all over again? Is this something that's being blown out of proportion? I don't know.
According to a report by Yahoo Sports, Michigan allegedly had people attending games of future opponents as well as possible college football playoff opponents to gather information on signs used to call plays on offense and defense. They could be fans in the stand. It could be planted in the stand. When you have 75 to 100,000 people in some of these stadiums, that's kind of interesting. You wear a different cap.
Yeah, it's very Belichickian, in that regard. But yeah, it's a strange thing. And again, we don't know what's going on. I saw Andy Staples talking about this a second ago. He said, "Here's what's funny about it. You could solve this problem very easily, especially given as much money as everybody has now." Do what the NFL does and put a radio in the helmet.
Well, they've been trying to do that. They've been wanting that for a long time, and for whatever reason, that's not happened. But that's what the NFL did for this very reason. And for whatever reasons, the NCAA or college football has been slow to adopt that. I think that maybe this kickstarts that now, and you see that get done. But there is a simple solution to it, and it's having what you said. But I mean, it does kind of seem just like another random weirdo Jim Harbaugh story. Like, who else is getting, it's just weird stories that crop up with him. I don't know what the incentive would be for any witch hunts out there. I also know that coaches try to find every advantage they possibly can, so to completely rule out that he might be bending the rules a little bit or finding a way to get better. I totally believe that. I'm sorry, but I do. I've been around college football long enough to know that all of these goody two-shoes that you try to pretend these guys are sometimes, they're competitors at the end of the day with millions of dollars on the line. And so, they're going to try to find advantages wherever they can. So, I can absolutely believe it. I don't know the extreme of it, of how outraged, opposing coaches should be. Clearly, Michigan State doesn't have a problem playing them, but it seems like there's more to unpack here, like there was with the recruiting violation allegations. So I don't know what to make of it entirely. It's just kind of humorous, I guess, or unsurprising that there's another little Michigan Jim Harbaugh situation that's arisen, because it just seems like that kind of comes with the territory with him on occasion. And so here we are.
Somebody on Twitter also saying, "Oh, great, Michigan State commenting on integrity."
It's Twitter. Come on.
I agree. One other note, by the way, I really did not know the rule. I thought, just like I've said about some high school, you leave room for 5 to 7 different scouts, and sometimes more press boxes are more crowded than others. So there you are with that.
I just think it sucks you got a really good team and you have something stupid like this pop up now all of a sudden. Now, that could be the reason why people are skeptical of the timing of it. It's like, oh, Michigan's playing great, and now, somebody somewhere needs to derail them or something. I don't know how that would all come to fruition or how that would even work. But there is that thought out there. And so, yeah, I feel like, for me at least, I need to see more information before just getting all hot and bothered about Jim Harbaugh being a cheater or, completely brushing it to the side. I think there's probably somewhere in the middle where the truth lies with all of this. And again, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if a college football coach is trying to find an advantage somewhere.
Someone, I forgot the name because that's Twitter or our stat room. Watch the NCAA step in, nail Harbaugh, Michigan on the wall of this, making them vacate the Big Ten championship. I don't see Canelio, appreciate that. I don't see that in any way, shape, or form. Will there be a fine or reprimand, public, whatever? Perhaps, if in fact whatever the details really are. Here's what I wonder on things like this. All the rest of the 129 or 30, whatever the number of schools are going, hey, are we doing this?
I mean, you wonder. I mean, that's why I'm curious about is like how many people are doing this practice. I would love, because I think it's kind of cartoonish given our technology now that there are, signs up on the thing. We need to put a question mark after that.
Yeah. On our title,
on that title.
On the title of our screen, we need to put Michigan question mark, please, if whoever does that. Thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, but no, like get rid of the signs with a picture of, Daffy Duck and Lee Corso and a pair of blue jeans. That way you can just go ahead and embrace the technology that is readily available to you and probably not as expensive as a lot of the people would have you believe it is, and get this out and fix the problem, because then you wouldn't have to signal things in. But on the other hand of like, okay, so the NCAA is going to investigate this. There's no way that they can get it done in season because they've never done that before. So there's all this, red tape that they're going to create. Well, so if Michigan goes through and say goes 14-0, 15-0, wins the national championship, and then 2 years from now, the NCAA comes down to them, or 3 years from now, does that change the fact that if you were, Georgia and got beat by Michigan and didn't have a three-peat that, it's yours now?
What did they do with the Astros? People got fired and then, kind of tainted their reputation, but they didn't take the World Series away.
Yeah, I mean, so like, but it, again, if,
and I don't even want to go there because we don't even know what the details are.
Yeah, so that's the thing is, okay, so say he is doing it. What are you going to, and this is maybe part of Jim Harbaugh's calculation, and the thing is, so we're doing it. What are you going to do about it right now? I'm trying to win the national championship in 2023. In 2027, we can talk about it when you figure it all out.
Northeast Ohio Boise State fan, and I think I saw where he bowled a 300 game recently, like his 7th of his life, which is ridiculous and great. Congratulations. If this was an SEC school doing this, nobody would hear anything, because one thing the SEC learned, not that they might not snipe on each other, believe me, they do. They all might at times hate each other, but they all have learned what's best for everybody is to just let everybody do what they do. But I appreciate the point from what you said. All right, who are the top, in your opinion, 3 schools right now in Vegas, odds on winning the Big 12 championship?
Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas State.
Oklahoma, plus 100, Texas plus 115, Kansas State at plus 1,400.
So is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, like a huge drop-off, which is, again, not a surprise that because everyone expects Oklahoma and Texas to most likely meet again at some point the first weekend in December.
And that could be clinched in a couple of weeks based on the way it's going. I mean, if the teams – underneath them keep beating up on each other and giving each other loss, win, then, yeah, I mean, there's going to be a bunch of teams with 4 Big 12 losses, and there's going to be those 2 with maybe 1. Well, I guess, in Texas' case, they have 1, maybe 2. Like, you could even, perhaps if you're Texas, have a second loss and still be okay based on the way that this could go and how just how much the conference is kind of eating each other alive, really. So, yeah, there's a lot of middle with the Big 12 right now. There's 2 seemingly elite teams. There's a couple of teams that you wonder if they could sort of scratch that surface. And then I think there's just a bunch of the teams, the majority, that are all just sort of there. And they're in the middle together, and they could all end up 500 when all is said and done. And so, yeah, I think Texas and Oklahoma are clearly the favorites, but K-State is who I guessed and I guess is right, and that makes sense. I think, they were ailing a little bit coming out of that loss a couple of weeks ago, but then the Avery Johnson performance at Lubbock really sparked that fire again, and now makes them a bit more dynamic and dangerous and unpredictable in how they handle that quarterback situation. So, yeah, I think that they're pretty well up there. And then after that, do you believe Iowa State's going to keep it all together for the long haul? Perhaps. Do you think TCU's starting to surge now, and maybe they got it figured out with the new quarterback? But then again, he's a young guy. Like, can we really trust that he's going to do what he did last week for 6 more weeks? But those are two that I think could cause some havoc as well, along with K-State. But, yeah, it's pretty clearly Texas and OU's league. If neither one of those teams end up in the Big 12 championship, then we're going to be talking about some fascinating outcomes that resulted in that being the case.
Yeah, you're starting to see, the Big 12 is going to start cannibalizing itself, and Texas and Oklahoma kind of got some favors on the way out as far as the way their schedule falls. Now, that's not to mean that they can't go unscathed. For Oklahoma 2 weeks ago, you would have thought that Bedlam was going to be an absolute cakewalk, but right now, I even with the emotions that were going into that game, Mike Gundy appears to have figured something out with how to make his team work. So things can go awry, and Tim Brando made a good point about Houston this week is that, if Texas rolls in there just thinking they're going to win that game, they're going to get the Cougs' best shot. What that means ultimately, Texas probably still going to win the game, but you never know what's going to happen. Like, weird stuff happens in college football now. That's why there's more parity than there ever was. So it looks like it's Texas and OU's to lose at this very moment, but
you know how many games? There's still a lot of.
I was going to say they've only, everybody's only played 3 games, so there's a boatload of teams that have 1 loss that are right there. So yeah, we need to see more, but I do think the eye test is pretty clearly OU and Texas. And then after that, like I said, you could go K-State, TCU, Iowa State, Oklahoma State. They all got 1 loss, and I'm probably leaving somebody out there. So yeah, it's too early to declare that this is over. It's definitely not that, because all it takes is an injury or two. Like Dylan Gabriel gets hurt, knock on wood, or Quinn Ewers gets hurt, or whoever.
Really nasty weather game that just changes everything.
Anything crazy could happen. It's so early still, but we are at the halfway point, and I think eye test wise, those two are the 2 best. But Oklahoma's only got a 1-game lead on a handful of schools, and Texas is sitting tied with a handful of schools basically. So yeah, they're not out of the woods and already booking tickets just yet.
Wet blanket, I love this one. Breaking news, Oklahoma State to receive the death penalty following NCAA violations at Michigan.
Yeah, that's probably going to be a joke for everything that happens for a while, isn't it?
Kansas State will, again, try to see if they can continue their run after the huge win in Lubbock. This is K-State offensive coordinator Colin Klein saying no starter has been chosen for the game against TCU at quarterback. No matter who the Wildcats go with, they plan to play both. We knew that part. Klein says that each of them have been great at practice this week. It always helps when there is competition. Avery Johnson's the one that led the comeback. Well, it was back and forth. They both came back against each other in Lubbock.
Have you heard a coach ever say, oh, he's looked like total garbage at practice, he should quit? Yeah, I don't know why he plays football. He should be a basketball player or tiddlywinks. No. So I'm curious. They always say, they both look great at practice, but I don't know. All the things said, they're going to play both quarterbacks. They look great at practice is coach speak of the highest order.
Yeah, this is one of the more interesting storylines. And wet blanket, that is, I wasn't even joking. That's going to be a running joke for a long time, unfortunately, for Oklahoma State, with everything the NCAA hands down, and especially when more often than not it's going to be a little to nothing punishment. Because let's face it, we'll see where the Michigan thing takes us, but is anybody really thinking this is going to bring down their run this year or anything along those lines?
Why would you want to bring down one of your sugar candies?
Well, it's not even that. It's like, what are they going to do realistically, right? But yeah, and why would you hurt yourself that way? Whereas with Oklahoma State, maybe it's not as much of a blow. I don't know, but the Oklahoma State thing still just makes no sense, and I would, like you, be rightfully ticked off every time an NCAA investigation gets brought up based on how things have been handled for the Cowboys here recently. But yeah, going to Kansas State, Avery Johnson was the dude. He played the entire second half. They finally saw that the rotation, in that first half was what it was and made the call to just go with the Avery show there. And he did what he did, and they walked out with a huge win there in Lubbock. And it was a close game at halftime. And then they, basically just went to him, and they were able to open it up and eventually walk away with what was a pretty assertive performance when all was said and done, and not that close of a game. How they do that now moving forward, I think, is the million-dollar question for Chris Kleiman in that program, because there's no denying the talent and the spark and the ability he has, but it's kind of like the Josh Hoover thing. Are we now sold based on one performance against an average at best, maybe slightly better than average Tech defense, that that's going to be the case every week? So, yeah, I'm interested to see more of him. He's clearly got the skills and the goods and is going to be really, really good the more he plays. But, Will Howard has played a lot for you. So, yeah, that's an interesting pickle to be in, but a good problem, I think, to have, that you have two quality quarterbacks that you can turn to, but at the same time, we know that those rotations always don't work that well. So, yeah, I'm fascinated to know and see how Chris Kleiman handles all that.
I liked what I saw, and I don't have the audio. I did not hear exactly what was being said, but Will Howard was talking to Avery Johnson on the sideline late in the game, and it was almost as if Avery Johnson, I'm not saying he was doing this, like apologizing that he was the one that had taken over the game. Will Howard was like, no, man, like almost like this was your opportunity. Thank you, because they needed him, because Howard just was not being productive, and he's not 100%. Steve Sarkisian, Cedric Golden from the Austin American-Statesman. Sarkisian, I think I have a team that's a little pissed off. Great sign going into the Houston game. The game, of course, Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock, Fox Sports, Tim Brando and Spencer Tillman.
Yeah, I do think, for all of that, Houston's going to be able to relax and sit back. Okay, I hope so, that you can clear your head if you're Houston. But, the game right after you had Red River in your hands and let it go, like that, for a Texas team that looks like they're pretty good, and they're not in the same, oh, shucks, we stink again, kind of a mode, Eeyore that they have been. As soon as something bad happens, the season unravels. I don't think that's the case for this Texas team. I think that Steve Sarkisian's changed the attitude in the locker room. So the other side of the coin is, yeah, you've got Texas mad about what happened in Dallas, and the first person that they get to take that out on is Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, bad news for Houston. It's I guess still a hope that, somehow that home field advantage and maybe that attitude will not be a positive for Texas. Maybe they get a little too fired up, play over their skis a little bit. Maybe that's the hope with that quote, rather than the ominous nature of it, where, yeah, they're locked in now and they're going to roll into Houston and, just dominate. I know the books say that Texas is, multiple touchdown favorites, and rightfully so, but I'm not surprised to see that quote. I would imagine they are a bit pissed off. They've had 2 weeks to have to sit there and stew on the Oklahoma loss, knowing that shouldn't have necessarily been a loss from their angle, that they had that game with the lead with a little over a minute to go and couldn't get a stop. And all they needed was one more stop. They couldn't get it, not to mention multiple other, little mistakes throughout that game where, any team can do that with any game for the most part, and say, well, if we didn't do this and we didn't do that. But, really, in that game, you look at it, and it was razor thin, that error for margin. And so they made a few mistakes that this next time around, if they get a rematch and they don't make those, good chance they might win that encounter. But they've got to handle their business. And, yeah, unfortunately for the Cougars, they're up first in line. But at the same time, Texas needs to be that way, because if they want to, have those CFP hopes still remain intact, they can't lose another game. So they have little margin for error. They've got margin for error when it comes to the Big 12, sure, because there's a lot, and we know that there are going to be teams taking multiple losses. So you could lose 2 games and still get in that title game. But the CFP part of it, that's a no-go if they lose another game. And so, yeah, I'd imagine they're going to be regrouped, refocused, and ready to rip on Saturday against the Cougars.
All right, so here's one that's this has been with Iowa's offense the way it is, but their defense that is so stingy, among the top 10 in the country. Here is from Brett McMurphy. The over-under for Minnesota at Iowa is now at 31.5 points. Tied for the lowest in college football in the past 20 years with, yes, of course, 2 previous Iowa games. The others, 2022 against Kentucky. Iowa won 21-0. Iowa, Minnesota as well. Iowa winning 13-10.
By the way, under on both those.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that's really low amount of points, man.
15,
yeah, it's a really low amount of points. I mean, to the point where I actually do balk a little bit and go, yeah, I'm not sure. My caller, what is going on here? Yeah, I don't. That's low enough where I might go over on that, but I'm not. That's
the
not
other
my.
two was 21-0 and 13-10, so they hit the under then too.
But I don't think Minnesota's incapable of scoring points though. Like that's the thing. So yeah, I don't know about that. I could see where folks might go over there, but I'm not by any means Mr. Vegas. So yeah, do what you do.
My thought is take the under because if Wisconsin can't score, that many points,
but Mordecai was hurt.
Yeah, but even still, I just think. I don't know.
Yeah.
They still got
they were
struggling
to score with him. So yeah, but
they still got Braylon Allen. There's other things.
All that.
He's not.
There's something missing there too.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe, but Minnesota has been much worse on offense than Wisconsin all year. So.
Well, did you watch Minnesota-Nebraska? That was kind of not a pillow fight. It kind of was a physical game, but neither one of them could really do much as far as score. So there we are with a lot of college football notes here to open up the show here on this Thursday afternoon. Hope you've had a great day. Craig will have Off the Radar a look at college football this week and also tonight, plus much more when it comes to the baseball postseason. So I'm going to say this about Michigan, and you guys respond to me on this one. I think we spoke probably quite a bit about it. Is this another one of those that everyone clutches their pearls and it just basically ends up being nothing? You don't have to look at what he's thinking.
I don't know. Well, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't really think about what everybody else is thinking when it comes to it. I don't really worry about who's clutching their pearls or anything. It's like I didn't go, what's Twitter think about this? I don't know. I think that it very well could be a case where they were cheating. I would not be surprised by that whatsoever. If you named Michigan State as opposed to Michigan, or you said Ohio State, or you said Minnesota, I'd believe all of it. It's not about Michigan to me. It's it's just odd that they seem to be caught up in another thing that people want to brush away very quickly on their side of it, or say, oh, this is just the NCAA with their, they're just out to get somebody or whatever. And I don't know when it comes to that. I mean, it's definitely not an organization I trust either. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see in the wash when they complete their investigation. But as we know with these things, we're probably going to forget about it and not care that much. I think it's a bunch of reaction right now because it's a story on a slow news day.
Which was my question,
so, yeah. But, I mean, beyond today, I don't think that we're going to sit here and dwell on it necessarily.
I think the bigger issues are not just that they may or may not have been doing it, which is what is their punishment for it? Because there's not punishment for anything, really. I mean, I'm reading what Mike Boynton said about, the NCAA and how this all worked out. Oklahoma State's mistake was they did not select the IARP for that investigation. The IARP didn't do anything to anybody. And it wound up petering out and going. They just said, well, we'll take our chances with the NCAA, seeing as they don't really do anything either. And they're the NCAA is okay, well, no postseason. And that's happened to them. Well, what's the NCAA going to do? And then the larger issue of the question is not just that Jim Harbaugh might have been going around stealing signs. And then not only that, they're really good and they haven't played anybody yet. Why is he doing that now?
Well, that's part of the details, at least in the report, was future opponents and future college football playoff opponents. But
which future opponent?
I don't know who I'm just saying that's what
but how long in the future did he do it? Is it Ohio State that noticed this, or did he do it against Minnesota and Minnesota noticed it too, and they won that game 52-10? So there's a lot of questions. But again, and if I'm Jim Harbaugh and he's already kind of done this with the suspension that they have, the 3 games. Okay, NCAA, what are you going to do to me? What are you going to do to me? How are you going to enforce this?
And does he care? Because he'll just leave.
Exactly. So that's the larger issue to me that people should be maybe more clutching their pearls about, is not that okay, he's doing it. If this was a normal thing, you would have a punishment that's all right. Well, you were caught violating Rule 31.3-5 of stealing signals. That's an automatic this and this and this, as opposed to, 2 years from now, he could be coaching the Bears or the Jets or something, and Jim Harbaugh got in trouble for sign stealing, and we're going to vacate that title. Well, who's ever asked they kick on the way isn't going to be oh, great, we're the winners now.
Yeah, no, I get that. I thought it was interesting. I can't remember who the reporter was. It's a national columnist that said there are multiple schools that have Michigan on their schedule who are not thinking about backing out of their game. That would be the dumbest thing ever. That's not even really even worth saying, because that's not going to happen because of whatever the allegations are right now. So, all right, this is 365 Sports. Later on today, we'll give our college football picks. And, man, has there been movement in the standings. Big-time movement. We'll get to that. And then also today, Taylor McCark, ESPN, in about an hour from now, we'll have Max Olson at 4, his thoughts about this latest story, plus his stop rate of defenses in college football. And then around the corner, Chad Brendel. He covers Cincinnati. That's who Baylor plays on Saturday. We'll have him. And Paul Catalina's top 5 to close out the show. And Craig Smoak in about an hour or so with Off the Radar. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental got a reminder, text reminder that I have a dentist appointment next week, and it's to look at a tooth that they had to fix a little bit about a month ago. And I knew this was coming up, but I might even need for that tooth to be replaced or a crown or one or the other, and that's fine. They used to keep me up at night. No, it's fine. My dentist is Dr. Steve Childress. He's amazing at what he does, always has been, and ever since he and I became doctor-patient, as far as when he said, hey, I'd like to start taking care of your dental work. It was during COVID, and he has been money. When I've had sharp pain on a Friday night, he met me at his dentist office. He's also met me right as they opened the doors up when I had a tooth just crack. He is fantastic. His staff is fantastic. If you need dental work in the Waco area, it is worth Steve Childress, Dr. Steve Childress, Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
During Jeep Adventure Days, Alan Samuels in Waco is celebrating with an incredible line of 2023 models like the Grand Cherokee, Renegade, Wrangler, and Gladiator. Come see what Alan Samuels can offer you and your family and find the Jeep SUV that fits your lifestyle.
Pioneer Steel & Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel & Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel & Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Chad Brendel again, Bearcat Journal covers Cincinnati. We've gotten to know him since all of the discussion that Cincinnati would join the Big 12. Well, that's happened. This is their first year. Chad joins us with Paul Craig. I'm David Smoak on 365 Sports. Chad, this is a game. You have Cincinnati in a little bit of a free fall. Baylor has been in one really almost since the beginning. And yet it's important, right, that somebody has to win this game?
Yeah, I mean, for Cincinnati, they started out pretty well. They stubbed their toe against Miami of Ohio, and that kind of started this current trend. The problem for Cincinnati is, even though they weren't getting wins, ultimately they were playing fairly well up until Iowa State last week. Iowa State last week was a disaster, and you can't, you're in a spot where you can't let that become the norm for the rest of the season. So this Baylor game is incredibly important for Scott Satterfield and company.
Chad, what do you feel that Cincinnati will lead into against a Baylor defense that's not stopped the run very much? You know, Emory Jones can be an adventure either way, and to protect him the most and have the most success moving the football.
I mean, the most effective thing they've done with consistency is run Emory Jones. Up until the Iowa State game, though, I mean, they had been averaging well over 200 yards a game on the ground. They're one of the best rush offenses in the country. So you would think there has to be a focus to get back to that, to be a team that, you know, just tries to kind of lean on you in the run game and use the pass as a supplement to the run game. Part of it against Iowa State, they were behind most of the game, so they didn't really get a chance to kind of find a groove. But, I mean, ultimately, that's been their bread and butter. They've got a couple really talented backs and a quarterback that can run. If you're playing a team that can't stop the run, probably be wise to see how much you can run the ball.
Chad, Iowa State's started off as a little bit of a surprise team. How much of just last week, too, was you think that the Cyclones are pretty good based on what you saw?
I think their defense is really stout, and especially if they get you in a situation where you have to throw, and their pass defense, especially their defensive secondary, is really good. They play tight coverage. You don't see a lot of guys running open, and the guys that are running open, their safeties are excellent over the top. So, I think just as that game played out and Iowa State built their lead, they just squeezed the life out of the Cincinnati passing game. If you can play from in front on Iowa State, I think, you can probably be in a lot better position because their run defense isn't as stout. But if they can just pin their ears back, come after you, and play coverage, you're probably going to be in trouble against them.
Chad, Nippert Stadium is a great environment. Does that lose any luster with the 3-game losing streak?
It hasn't so far, but it'll be interesting on Saturday. People are frustrated. This is a program that hasn't lost in a pretty good stretch. So hitting a rough patch, it's going to be interesting to see. The weather will be interesting as well. It looks like the weather is going to be done. There's some rain today and tomorrow. It looks like it should be done by Saturday morning, but if they're dealing with any lingering weather, you worry that everybody's going to be tempted to take a week off, I think, is a decent way to put it.
Chad, what is your, I guess, midseason assessment of what Scott Satterfield has improved so far with this Bearcat team?
Not right now, not a whole lot. Unfortunately, it feels like the arrow is kind of trending in the wrong direction because of that Iowa State game. I think they did a really good job in the transfer portal getting Power 5 level talent at the top of this roster. I think the biggest problem that they have with, I think over the past 3 years prior to this year, there's 9, 4, 3. like 16 guys in the NFL off of Cincinnati's roster over the past 3 years. I don't think that they have done a great job replacing that number of talent walking out the door. And then you have the defections with the coaching change and, 23 transfers brought in by Satterfield. Unfortunately, what people don't tell you about the transfer portal is you can go get Power 5 level contributors, but it's really difficult to go find Power 5 level, stars, very top of the roster guys. And I don't think they did enough of that in this cycle. But it's hard to judge right now because it's a team that it feels like is losing confidence. And, these are guys through the Fickle era, like they won 9, 10, 11, 12 games every year. Most of these guys have never experienced a 4-game losing streak. So the key for Baylor in this game, I think, is if you can jump out early and, again, put their confidence in doubt, I think Baylor's in a good spot. But as far as what's improved, it's really hard to say because things are kind of going the opposite way. The defensive line has been really good as expected. From there, not a whole lot, gentlemen.
Chad, you're telling me not everybody in the transfer portal's Keon Coleman. That's kind of how it feels. Yeah. Like Baylor went and got like 11 transfers and everybody's like, oh, they've retooled. And quite frankly, like maybe one of them's made any impact out of like 11 guys. That's super notable. So yeah, it's not an exact science of you just go and grab your groceries and it all turns into a terrific recipe, right?
Right. Sometimes, you find out that the tomato was bad and the pasta was the wrong pasta. And next thing you know, you're ordering carry out.
Yeah. No, absolutely. There's a reason guys are available sometimes, and it's not just NIL, or whatever. Right. But you mentioned the run defense, and obviously that was a big part of the hype during the offseason about the positives of what that defensive line could turn into. So you mentioned that they're kind of living up to that. What about that back seven? I mean, Baylor's a team they're talking about a lot of struggles running the football, and they're going to have to pass to run. How is Cincinnati's pass defense stacked up so far?
It is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen, guys. If you look at number of passes completed in the country, Cincinnati has allowed the third fewest pass completions in the country. Like every game, it's like the quarterback completed 14, 12, 13, 14 passes. But they also completed 14 passes for 275 yards. So they're giving up an uncanny amount of big plays on the back end. The problem being, we knew this defensive line was very good and going to be very good stopping the run. They have not been very good getting to the quarterback. Now, I know that's something Baylor has struggled with, so that's going to be another point of contention, I think, in terms of who wins this game. If Cincinnati can bring down the quarterback, that changes their ability to play pass defense a little bit. But as it stands, they have not given up many completions, but they have given up a ton of yards and allowed teams to be super efficient passing the ball. And that's kind of the boom or bust with a pass defense that is designed to get after the quarterback and create turnovers. Well, here's the problem, guys. They're not sacking the quarterback. They're not creating turnovers, and they are giving up big plays. So there's no boom, and there's a lot of bust in Cincinnati's pass defense. If Baylor needs to throw it 25, 30, 35 times a game, it's going to be really interesting to see how Cincinnati holds up.
If they need to do that, they probably need to pivot to it, Chad. As a matter of fact, to hear you talk and to hear us talk this week about what Baylor does well, it appears that both these teams are kind of in the same spot, facing each other. Is that
right? The
one thing that each team does well, the other team doesn't stop well. So this could get really weird and interesting,
or it could be a hell of a game.
You know what I called it last night on our podcast? I called this game the movable force against the resistible object.
Yeah. And you also mentioned if Baylor gets off to a good start, and other than maybe a little bit early against Utah, they haven't done that either.
Cincinnati hasn't either. So it might be 3-0 at the end of the first quarter, guys.
Hey, Chad, what have you thought of? You mentioned Emory Jones earlier and how he's been effective in the running game, but obviously very turnover prone. But what have you just made of his game overall?
So I think he has gotten a little jumpy, a little antsy in the pocket. Cincinnati, their offensive line has done a good job run blocking. They have not given him a lot of time in the passing game. So it almost feels like his brain is not allowing him to get to the backside of a play. So it's kind of, take the snap, look at the first option. If that's not there, check out the check down. And if he doesn't like that, then he's taken off. And, that's not a good place to be if you're a quarterback. It's felt like they've had guys on the backside open. And I wonder how much of that is teams are watching and saying, you know what, like we don't even have to guard, the boundary side, or we don't have to pay any attention to the backside of the play because he's not getting there to beat us that way. So, wherever his head goes when the ball is snapped, you focus there, you stop the check down, and then you wait for him to run. And, yes, the offensive line has been a little porous, but I think he needs to start regaining that confidence to stand in there and get to the backside of the play. The other thing that's been really odd, you watched him through camp, you watched him in their opening game against Eastern Kentucky and then against Pitt when they beat Pitt. Like, he was throwing an outstanding deep ball. And we haven't seen it in 4 games. I mean, he has missed. You go back to the Iowa State game, first quarter, 5th play of the game. He's got a guy on a deep post running 10 yards free of the defense, and he overthrows him by 4 yards. I mean, I think I could have scored a touchdown on that play.
Yeah.
And, he had one in the BYU game down the sideline. And, early in that game that could have changed the momentum of that game. And he misses the guy by 3 yards over the top. I don't know if it's a matter of trying to be perfect, not putting enough air under the ball, like whatever the case may be, he is not putting himself in the position to make big plays through the air. And it's crazy. Like, you look at the low scores for Cincinnati going into the Iowa State game, they had the most first downs in the country. Like, they were averaging almost 23, 24 first downs a game, but they weren't making any big plays. So they were having to move the ball, 11 yards at a time. And it just puts so much stress on the offense to complete these long 13, 14, 15 play drives without making any mistakes. And it's not sustainable. And, that's kind of where Emory, I think, is not doing himself or the offense any favors, because you hit a couple of those big plays, the defense has to play different. They have to respect your ability to go over the top. And, right now teams don't have to respect this offense 15 yards past the line of scrimmage.
Chad, Emory Jones kind of reminds me of that pitcher on your favorite Major League Baseball team that's like the 5th starter that he stresses you out, but every once in a while you'll like check your phone and go, oh, he's got a no-hitter going through 7. How did this happen? And you tune it in. And, then you're like, okay, well, maybe he's turned the corner. And then the next time he, hits the first 2 batters and walks 7, right?
He gives up 6 runs in 3 innings, and you're wondering, well, okay, it looks great now. He's pitched, 13 innings and allowed 6 runs. That's pretty good. No. That's not a bad analogy. I mean, it hits very close to home, because it does feel like, there are times like you're like, all right, it seems like he's getting things together and the team is moving the ball and things are starting to click. And then, you don't see it again for 5 quarters.
Chad, this is kind of off topic a little bit, but would you ever have thought that a Cincinnati Bearcat would be dating the biggest superstar in the entire world. Does that even resonate? The whole Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce thing around Cincinnati, is that even a talked about subject at all, or what's kind of made of it?
Oh yeah, it's talked about a lot in my house because I have a 13-year-old daughter.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Who, remember, I've been doing this for 16 years, so you know what my daughter's name is, right? I don't think you guys know this.
No.
My daughter's name is Kelsey.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go.
She's named after Jason.
Awesome.
Golly.
So I tell her all the time, she's like, I'm named after Travis. He's the cute one. Yeah. I'm like, honey, in 2010, Travis Kelce sucked. Like, he was kicked off the team when you were born.
He was a quarterback, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, he was like a gimmick quarterback, right. and then he got kicked off the team Butch Jones' first year for partying a little too hard at the Sugar Bowl and failing an NCAA mandated drug test. But she's also a diehard Swiftie, so now she is convinced that because Dad knows Travis, that Kelce is going to meet Taylor.
Oh, gosh.
Well, I mean, if you have any clout, right? Yeah, I mean, my goodness, you ought to get that. You ought to make that. It sounds like you entering this game as someone who's covering Cincinnati, and as we have covered Baylor, we really don't know what the hell we're going to see. Either it's going to be a 17-6 game somehow, one way or the other, or it could end up being just one that is a hellacious game that's 31-28 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's interesting for me from a Cincinnati perspective, I did not see a team with a lot of fight when the going got tough against Iowa State. And coming off a 3-game losing streak, coming off a bye, like, that's just not normal for here. Like, the one thing that Cincinnati has been known for is go stand in the middle of the ring and trade haymakers with you. And I didn't see that last week. So it's going to be very telling the type of emotion this team plays with Saturday. Because if they come out flat again, or if, one or two things go wrong for Baylor or in Baylor's favor early and they start hanging their heads, that is not a great sign for what's to come over the last 5 games for Cincinnati. I fully expect this team to come out angry, or at least I hope they will, based on that performance that they had last week. So that part's going to be interesting. I mean, we have seen in this league a couple times already this year, teams that have picked themselves up off the mat. You looked at Oklahoma State early and it was like, oh my, like that's,
yep.
They might need to get rid of Gundy is what people were saying 3 weeks into the season. Texas Tech has kind of picked themselves up off the mat. It'll be interesting to see if one of these two teams uses this opportunity Saturday to kind of get things going in the opposite direction as we head down the stretch.
Hey, Chad, we appreciate you, buddy. Thank you so much, and good luck with Taylor Swift meeting your daughter, Kelsey. That's your number one target the rest of the year for Christmas. That's Chad Brendel. He's fantastic at what he does. Appreciate him. Covers Cincinnati, the Bearcats, in need of a win like Baylor, and I have no idea what to expect. We'll have our predictions. Of course, game day live will be at 9 o'clock coming up on Saturday morning. We'll have Max Olson here in about a minute and a half. Craig, it sounds like we're almost looking in the mirror of what he sees with Cincinnati with a few things compared to what we watched when we covered Baylor.
Yeah, it's not the most exciting game to talk about. The Taylor Swift anecdote, though, was definitely worth that interview, though, just to get that out. But, yeah, I mean, it's two teams who desperately need a win. I think if you're Cincinnati, staring at 0-4 in the Big 12 and not a lot of great opportunities to find that first win. And then for Baylor, I mean, yeah, this is one of the more winnable games on their schedule remaining, and I don't know how winnable it even is. So, yeah, it's going to be a big win for whoever gets it, but both are a far cry from the top of the standings.
We are joined by Max Olson, theathletic.com. Max, of course, had his defensive stop rate earlier in the week. We'll discuss that with him here in the next 10 minutes. Max, your thoughts initially about the story involving Michigan and how big this might be, or is this one of those that eventually it just kind of fades away?
Yeah, it's the Jim Harbaugh run recently, right? You just see these headlines and you're like, wait, what happened? I can understand if, like, maybe the average fan doesn't quite understand this story. I want to make it, like, very clear. I haven't done reporting on this, so there's much more to learn, I'm sure. But signal stealing is very common in college football. I mean, people have, the reason that signals are so complicated during games, and you see people have all these posters and all these curtains and all this stuff, is because it's a pretty important part of the game. Is if your signals can be figured out by the opposing team, it is a huge advantage. Brent Venables was famously extremely good at this as the DC at Clemson and the people around him. And so that stuff is, it happens all the time. You got to change your signals if you think your signals have been stolen. The idea of sending random people to games to video or watch signals or whatever, that's where we're getting into wait, what did they do? I mean, that's the part that has to be investigated, because that's the part that's over the line. Accused of signal stealing, everybody is doing that. That's it's an under the radar thing, but it's a thing that's pretty common in the sport. But the idea of sending people to attend your future opponent's games, if Michigan did that, there would be trouble for that.
Well, and my question is also how in the future did he do this? Did he do this for these first 7 opponents, which, he didn't need that at all? Or is he doing it just for Ohio State and Penn State and Georgia and Texas and Oklahoma?
It's a good question. I don't know that you need to be sending, investing manpower into stealing Rutgers signals and some of these other teams that they play. So, yeah, it would make sense if you're looking at Ohio State and you're looking at Georgia and some of these potential playoff teams. I'm very curious if they will get down to the bottom of how much this went on and what it looked like, what the process was. But when you combine that with the NCAA issue with Jim Harbaugh that is still unresolved, it does kind of make you wonder a little bit. Maybe these are petty, small things overall in the grand scheme of things. Maybe these are just speeding tickets, but. I feel like Michigan has a chance to go win it all this year. I don't think this kind of stuff is going to screw that up. But, we have had the last 2 off seasons of Jim Harbaugh looking at NFL jobs. So you kind of wonder if some of these things are going to start to add up.
Max, biggest game in the country this weekend, and has, Michigan effects with the Big Ten race, especially, the division. But Penn State and Ohio State, battle of top 10s. Ohio State, slight favorites at home. But what stands out to you about this matchup?
Yeah, believe it or not, I will be covering this game.
Oh, great.
First time going to Columbus, Ohio for a game. So excited to check it out. I think Penn State, has kind of done everything right so far this season. They've not been a team that's been living that dangerously. And, but I think people still just kind of question, because you've got a sophomore quarterback that doesn't have that much experience. Can they go win these big games this year? I think this Penn State team is definitely capable of beating an Ohio State or Michigan this year. I think they're good enough. I think their defense is excellent. And I think the pressure is going to be on Ohio State, because that's a team that has kind of messed around a little bit so far this season. And I think that, last year's game was a really tight game until it kind of got away from Penn State in the fourth quarter. I think it's going to be an excellent game, and hopefully another one of these games like we saw last weekend in Seattle, that it has kind of the feel of a playoff game with that kind of intensity, and two just really quality, top 5, top 10 type of teams. I can't wait to see how it plays out.
Max, you did release your stop rate, the latest rankings. Anything jump out at you other than Garrett Ross, who produces the show, is not real happy where LSU is in the 70s or wherever it might be?
Oh no, LSU's in the 100s. Yeah, they're way down at near the bottom of the list.
Even worse news. Okay.
Yeah, surprisingly, South Carolina has jumped below LSU as the worst Power 5 defense in the country this year. I didn't really see that coming from them. They've got some talented players. I think it will. Certainly you've got a bunch of Big Ten teams at the top of the list, and I know a lot of people like to say it's because of the offenses in the Big Ten, but that's one reason for optimism with Penn State. I mean, this is they're back up to number 1 in stop rate. They've done an excellent job in year 2 with Manny Diaz. They've got some great pass rushers. I think they're playing really well on the back end. This is going to be a huge statement game for Diaz and really for that program. If they can get stops against Ohio State and make things difficult for Kyle McCord, a guy who hasn't really had to start very many big time games like this.
Max, what's your second most interesting game of the week?
My second most interesting game of the week. I mean, I think Alabama-Tennessee is pretty up there, right? Mm-hmm. Is there one that's obviously above that for you?
That's what I was thinking. Well, because Tennessee they're playing really great on defense, right? They're not. Joe Milton did not meet the hype after that big bowl win, and Alabama's been the most intriguing mess that they've ever been this year, trying to navigate through and still only having the one loss.
Yeah, and I will say I think probably the right answer, if you ask me, is honestly it might be Duke Florida State. I think that might be the most interesting game after the one at Ohio State, because I do wonder how this ACC race is going to shake out a little bit in terms of, will there be a little bit of chaos? Obviously, Florida State's rolling, North Carolina's rolling, Miami has taken some losses. Duke, lost a really tight game to Notre Dame, but has already notched some big wins. So that one I'm very interested in. But, certainly for Alabama and Tennessee, it's like, someone's got to lose this game and is going to be pretty bothered by it. Because I think that, certainly we've seen these past 2 weeks when A&M has played both of these teams, like, man, they look pretty beatable, and I think that, if you go look at the numbers on Joe Milton, like you mentioned, he just has not been the kind of deep ball thrower that they need in that offense that they had with Hendon Hooker last year. So can he hit those opportunities when he's got, deep shots there? Can he convert those the way that Hooker did last year and hit a bunch of big plays, or this Alabama defense, will they kind of swallow him up? I think that's I like Alabama in that game, but, I don't know that anyone would be stunned if Alabama messed around and lost that one.
You mentioned Jimbo there, and that was all the rage at the beginning of the week was just talk about their loss to Tennessee. I mean, obviously there's the massive buyout, Max, and that comes with the conversation, but has anything really changed all that greatly in your opinion? I mean, is this moving closer to the Ags boosters rounding up their money and all that, or is this just more oh, hey, they lost again, it's time to talk more about Jimbo and his hot seat?
Yeah, I mean, I think that certainly how they play over the last 5 games here, or 6 games or whatever, I mean, certainly how they play is going to be important, but I do think the win total is going to ultimately matter here. Like, I think if A&M is sitting at 8-4, I don't think anybody's really happy with that outcome based on the quality of talent they've got. And you mentioned stop rate. Like, this is one of the better defenses in the country. They have been since the Miami game. They've been one of the best. 5th in points per drive allowed in the 5 games since they lost to Miami. And so I feel like they're kind of squandering that a little bit just with all the offensive issues they've had, especially in the second half. And, there's some pretty tough games here ahead on the schedule. Like, I think Jimbo Fisher probably does need to get to 9 wins to kind of get people off his back. And if A&M comes up short of that, will they find the money, as people like threaten? Will they find the money and make him go away? Or is he coming back and he's going to have to make big changes? And then you've got an off season where you're probably losing players to the portal and losing recruits. And there's really not a lot of like positive momentum with Texas and Oklahoma coming into your league. Like, that's just kind of a bad combination.
Max, I know you got to go. One question. If you had, I know you have a Heisman vote. I'm fortunate. Would you have Caleb Williams on your ballot if it was this week?
I don't think I would have dropped. Yeah, it's a great question. I don't think I would drop him all the way off the ballot just off that game. I mean, certainly that was like the worst game he's played probably since he got to USC, maybe in his whole career if you go back to his freshman year at Oklahoma. I think clearly it seems like voters are we're kind of rallying around Michael Penix here. But remember at this time last year, the Heisman frontrunner was Hendon Hooker. I mean, we still got a long ways to go here, and I kind of wonder, like, to make that comparison, like, is this Washington team kind of the hot one right now, and you run out a little bit of gas like Tennessee did last year? Can they keep it going? Clearly, he's got a great narrative behind him with all the injury history in Indiana. People just love watching that team play, so he's in great shape. But I don't think we've heard the last of Caleb, and I think there's a bunch of quarterbacks leading these teams that are very much in this race.
I thought Bo Nix was just as impressive. He just had the loss.
I thought so too.
Northeast Ohio Boise State fan recommendation for you. If you're going to be at Columbus for the game, you should get food at Smith's German Sausage House.
Ooh, okay.
That's a little
nugget,
nugget, huh?
Down.
Yeah.
Is that your first time going to Columbus, Max?
No, we did the video.
That's
the video
right,
series we did in August. We went there for an episode. That was my first time in Columbus. I don't know if y'all have ever been out there. That's a cool college town for sure.
Yeah,
big city.
It really is. And walking through the horseshoe is like being in Rome back in the day. Thanks for your time, buddy. Enjoy the day and have fun in with that game, Penn State, Ohio State in Columbus. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys.
All right. And by the way, Northeast Ohio Boise State fan. It's my a mouthful. Thank you for the recommendation. Paul, Schmidt's German Sausage House. Craig, you like that sound good to you too? Little mustard on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds good, yeah.
Well, look, if you tell me a good place to go, I'll try it. Look, and here's what I promise you. I will give you a good restaurant recommendation on the back end. It's one of my true skills in life. If you name a city I've been to, I can tell you where to go.
Chris Cobb, Ohio State will roll Penn State. Haven't been impressed with Penn State since they are undefeated. Absolutely.
Man, well, that'd be something.
Man, that's a high bar.
That'd be something.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely be talking about that right out of the gates on Monday if that was the case. But, I mean, I think there's probably people on both sides that feel like they've got the superior team. And what's great is we're going to see that on Saturday and what should be a game filled with all the pageantry that you love with college football. It's going to be fun, man.
I agree.
Just would hate for you to assess anything if you've not been impressed with Penn State so far.
Yeah, they've had a little bit more than what is kind of like Iowa offensively. A little bit of they've been good. I've seen them.
What you think of The Godfather? Oh, I mean, like the acting is fine, whatever.
Too many
I mean,
of them.
I don't know. I mean,
Patrick Nelson, I think whoever wins between the Cowboys, Oklahoma State, and West Virginia, a decent chance of being in the Big 12 championship game. A very interesting game. Yeah, West Virginia had all that momentum, and then, of course, it popped on the Hail Mary. And then Oklahoma State looked like they were almost all gone. And now all of a sudden they get up like the Undertaker out of the casket. And we're not quite done yet. So a lot of teams did kind of turn it around after it looked like they were almost dead and buried. So thank you, Patrick, for that.
Yeah, I mean, West Virginia went the opposite direction though with that loss.
Yeah,
That would have been the opposite. Or they were going pretty well, and that win would have been huge for them. So now they get the setback with that. Whereas with Oklahoma State, yeah, they needed to start winning, and now they have. And Ollie Gordon's become a name that a lot of people are learning, and rightfully so with what he's been able to do. And Alan Bowman settled in there as quarterback, and they've got great wide receivers. And so, yeah, that's a very interesting game to your point in Morgantown. Garrett Green, it got lost in the loss, but had a huge game passing, which has not been his bread and butter. He's more of a runner, but he had by far and away his career day. Now, was that a product of the opponent, or is that, a good sign for West Virginia offense that has been okay? If he's starting to throw the ball around a bit, then I think that's great news. But yeah, Oklahoma State will be a terrific test, and vice versa. So yeah, that's a coin flip type of game, it feels like, and whoever, to your point, does win that will have the inside track and be right there in that little tier 1B or tier B when it comes to the Big 12 title race.
Paxton asking who's had a better year, or who has been worse is actually, I'm going to say who has had the better year, Caleb Williams or Quinn Ewers. I'll give you the passing efficiency from the NCAA just off their website. Caleb Williams is 4th in the country, 23 touchdowns to 4 picks, and Quinn Ewers 16th in efficiency with 11 touchdowns against 3 picks, and both of them have a loss. Ewers to Texas, to Oklahoma, and Caleb Williams, of course, in the loss to Notre Dame.
Look, it's not necessarily a fair comparison because Caleb Williams personally has had one bad game in his entire career. So, I mean, and I'm not even here to dog Quinn Ewers. I think Quinn Ewers is on the ascendancy, but you're not comparing two guys who have the same skill set. You just aren't. Caleb is the best quarterback in the country. I think that the problems that USC has are not him. Now, granted, he had a rough game last week, but again, you can't expect him to be perfect all the time.
Any quarterback that has to run around with his head cut off or getting hammered one way or the other, and he is going to have a bad game.
Occasionally, Michael Jordan missed a bunch of shots. Randy Johnson got turned around on. I mean, nobody plays perfect all the time. So it's kind of a weird comparison and question because both their teams have the same record. They both lost one time. The team around Quinn Ewers is probably better than the team around Caleb Williams.
I think the only game that would have been worse, but it was for a half, was when it came to Baylor in, 2021, when he got turned around like a pretzel.
Yeah, I mean, it's for what it's worth, just asking the question. I'll take Caleb Williams 10 times out of 10. I just think he can do more with his feet and can make some of the most incredible plays that you'll ever see. But that's okay, if I can't get Caleb Williams, I get Quinn Ewers, the number 2 overall pick. I'm still going to win a lot of games, and he's going to do a lot of cool things. So, I mean, I think it's I guess a fun argument to have. But, yeah, give me Caleb Williams. But Quinn Ewers, that's not a diss on him whatsoever.
All right, when we come back a little bit, we have a segment coming up about money can't buy you happiness or championships. From Brett McMurphy, some stats he put out. We'll have Craig's Off the Radar in about a half an hour, and also Taylor McCarg of ESPN is around the corner, and this is 365 Sports. The first annual Father and Son Cookout. City of Woodway putting that on Saturday, 11 until 1. Fathers, sons, uncles, grandfathers. Join Woodway Family Center. Discover Woodway for the first annual cookout, Father-Son Cookout. Enjoy burgers and hot dogs from the great place in Waco, Double R Burgers. Ice cream from Heritage Creamery. Field day fun with climbing, bounce houses, kickball, photo booth, and so much more. It's this Saturday, 11 to 1. It's the first annual Father and Son Cookout. It's discoverwoodway.com.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, bar, silver sneakers, and more. If you haven't been to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness lately, you're missing out on the improvements. New flooring in the weight room floor and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added to the weight room and group exercise room, and many new machines have been added and arriving constantly on the weight room floor. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new ellipticals on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Box, and welcome to Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com or visit us at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Money cannot buy you happiness or national championships. McMurphy's Law, Brett McMurphy from Action HQ had this up in his column this week. So 1 through 17, These are the schools, the public schools, who spend or actually have the most revenue. These are the ones that bring in the most revenue based on 2022. Ohio State, no surprises, down to Texas and Alabama, then LSU and A&M, Oklahoma 10, Florida State 15, Clemson at 158 at 17. Now, look at all those teams that have spent the money and look at how many of them have not won a national title. And this is, I guess, back since the college football playoff began. Now, granted, Alabama and Clemson have won a big chunk, and, of course, Georgia, too. Do you see Georgia on that list?
Yeah,
number
they're
5.
fifth. Yeah.
Alabama, number 3. So it doesn't mean money cannot buy you happiness or national champions, but by how much money others have spent, and some of them have not sniffed.
Yeah, well, I mean, Indiana at 13 there and Michigan State at 12 feel particularly far away from it. Virginia at 14. At least Kentucky Athletic Department revenue, that's a lot of basketball there. But, yeah, there's some schools on there that haven't, been good at particular. Michigan State's probably a lot of basketball, too. But Indiana and Virginia in particular, football-wise, could not be further away from the top.
Yeah, Indiana, just blessed to be in the Big Ten, for sure. And, I don't know. All those titles except for Clemson are right there in the top 5-ish. So there's something to the money part of it because all the titles are there. Texas, we know their case. They always spend money, and they just, fall short of expectations. Michigan's knocking on the door right now and has been for the last, last year right there in the college football playoff. LSU has a title. A&M, we know their whole story is spending money and it not amounting to anything. And then a lot of SEC and Big Ten. And Oklahoma will be in that party soon, and they're like Texas in that they've always been kind of like those others just without the conference affiliation. So, I don't know. I think once you get past, Oklahoma, I would say it's more SEC, Big Ten. Virginia's the one that seems like an outlier. But all the rest of them are SEC, Big Ten, or teams that have won titles, or teams that have won titles in the past, or are accustomed to paying to try to win titles. So
right. And Florida State is right on the edge because they won it in 13.
Yeah, they won the last BCS
and played
game.
In the 14.
Well, it's also Florida State.
Yeah,
they're up there.
So,
this is just revenue. We don't even know what they're spending.
Yeah.
This is money they make that they now have in their budget.
Yeah, this is television revenue, tickets, merchandise, etc. Yeah. All right, so you see the chunk, though. Craig's right. 4 of the top 5 or 4 of the top 6 have won national titles. Michigan last year sniffed, hammered, not hammered, but knocked out by TCU, and, of course, Texas. They're going to be in the top 5 for the rest of existence. Now, 2 schools that are not listed because these are public schools would be USC and Notre Dame that would probably knock Penn State, maybe Oklahoma, out of the top 10 because they would be around that number anywhere between 5, 6, 8, 10. So that's that as well. These are schools who have not been in the college football playoff out of all the ones that are spending money. But, again, that doesn't include college basketball. Virginia would jump in there. When's the last time Michigan State won a national title?
It's been a few years, but they're still regularly in the mix.
Right.
So
there we are with that. Brett McMurphy's Law comes out every week, I think Tuesday or Wednesday, from Action Network HQ. All right, Taylor McCarg around the corner. Anything we have not discussed yet today that we need to discuss before we hit what is going to be rapid fire for the next hour and a half?
No, I don't think so.
Got it? Craig, you brought up in the interview with Chad Brindle about Baylor's transfer portal players and that perhaps one of them has been like what you would consider, perhaps one, a major contributor. Who would that one be?
No, I was just saying that.
I wrote it down. When you said that, I was like, damn. Barrington Brothers, the offensive line has struggled. Dominic Richardson has, not the impact that you were thinking, but the running game has been just terrible. Mike Smith is out. Keatron Jackson has made some plays, but I think obviously the offense has not been good, so really it's hard to pick anybody on offense. Am I missing somebody here?
Well, look, going through just the transfers right now, and Mike Smith tore his ACL. So
that's what I just said.
Yeah, so he's out. some of these are transfers out. Dominic Richardson has.
I just mentioned him.
Yeah.
I mentioned the Barrington brothers, Mike Smith, Keatron Jackson, and Dominic Richardson.
Yeah, and so, none of the other ones really. Byron Vaughn's, heard his name said it all?
Yeah, he's the kid from Utah State. That name has been called, but not much.
Jake Roberts?
Not much of an impact.
So.
Position that seems to have a lot of people, but it just, again, hit and miss.
Yeah, so those, Trevin Maye?
No, I mean, there's been little to no impact. Yeah,
you got to have
that was the point. That they just haven't. You can say, oh well, we're going to go get. I mean, it's like the whole thing with, well, give more time. Okay, so what's the solution? They're going to go to the transfer portal this offseason. They're going to get 12 guys now rather than 11, or they can get 15 guys. They can get 20 guys. I mean, it's like, look at Colorado now. We're all sitting there tooting the horn of Deion. Look at what is amazing. We're not talking about them at all now at this point. And I'm sure we will some more. They'll win a game, and we'll get back to the Deion and the rise of the Buffaloes again. But, that's not for everybody, certainly, and it doesn't guarantee anything. And that's the whole point, is the transfer portal doesn't guarantee anything. It's one thing if you're Florida State and you've got a few holes and you go get a stud, not a guy who like some rando thinks can be a stud, like an actual real deal stud. And there's a difference in that and then going and like, we have all these spots to fill. We're gonna go hit the transfer portal and then everything's gravy. No, like they got like 11 guys or whatever the final total ended up being. And we can't even name a single one that's made massive contributions. And now look, we may be shorting the Barrington brother who's actually blocking well. But, based on what we've seen, the offensive line as a whole is not blocking well. Keatron Jackson's not a number one wide receiver or anything close to that right now. Monterey Baldwin is their number one wide receiver. Some guys didn't even make it. Like Ajani Carter didn't even make it onto the team. So, I just, when I hear about, well, get into the offseason and retool, it's like you did that last year and it didn't amount to anything. You went and got double-digit guys, and not a single one of them's like a star for you this year. So the transfer portal is not like some magic cure-all. It can fix some short-term solutions. It can fix some depth issues, but it doesn't guarantee that those guys are actually going to be impactful for you. And so that's when, I hear about how you can quick fix and all that, but there's only so many select cases where you really get a massive upgrade, and it's mostly like the big quarterback or the big wide receiver or whatever. When you're having to go get 10, 12 guys to try to fill holes, and you're not a Clemson or Ohio State or someone like that, there's reasons those guys are available more often than not.
Mitchell at Texas has had an impact, right?
Yeah, but like Texas and FSU.
Oklahoma's had some.
But that's Texas.
Yeah, they were able to just go and say, okay, there's a kid from Virginia. We're going to pluck him right off their roster. He's in the portal. We'll get him. And they didn't have to go deep into it. But where schools like Baylor can win in the transfer portal is you find those kids who were good but wind up the wrong school, and you're getting a redshirt freshman, but you're not counting on them. Like you are kind of guarding against your next recruiting class and having to ride that wave. That's where Baylor has to win in the transfer portal. And they did not do that 2 years ago. I think that's where the portal is hurting them the most.
I think that 2 years ago might be more of an impact than anything else even this year.
Because that means that you lost a chance for some veteran guys to be in your system for a year and then come and play. If you compare it to basketball and what Scott Drew did, having guys who can sit and learn, like Davion Mitchell and Jared Butler and Mace Uteague all had to do for a stretch. And then when they do come and impact your team, they're ready to go.
Yeah, I think that my whole point with the transfer portal and the fact that it's not a cure-all is that it's so if they struggle again this year, them specifically, and your plan is, well, we're going to go hit the transfer portal, why am I supposed to believe that's going to mean anything? Yeah. Like, I mean, so you're going to get a bunch of the guys you got last year that didn't do anything this year, and no disrespect to them, but, it is what it is at this point, and their record is what it is, and, I'm sure it does take time, but if the plan is, well, the portal will fix it for any program out there, you can't rely on that. You need to do it, like a Florida State does, and not everybody's even going to be capable of doing that because they don't have the bags to pay Keon Coleman what he needs. Let's face it, that's the big part of it. So, yeah, the superstars are going to get plucked away by most of the bigger programs that don't have probably as many holes to fill or at least have the money to be able to swing that. And then for the other programs, like, yeah, it can be very hit or miss. And I think that, the idea of that's just going to be a quick fix for everybody is clearly not the case. And in their case, they've gone backwards still, even with all those additions. So they're whatever offseason plans drawn up, whatever that looks like, depending on how these next 6 games go, I don't want to be told at the top that the transfer portal is going to fix things. You know, I need a bigger,
I get it.
more broad plan than this portal is going to fix this roster.
You got to have a hell of a class that have to all, like most of them hit, at least are productive. Devontae Walker, North Carolina, he's going to start making an impact. We've seen Keon Coleman, what he's done. Obviously, A.D. Mitchell, Sam Hartman, Travis Hunter, big money. And all of them have hit at least the one. There's like a bunch more that have too. When we come back, Tatum McCark, ESPN, on the games this week, including Penn State, Ohio State, and more. And this is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943. And then a little less than a year ago, they opened their doors to a brand new facility in December of last year on Loop 340 and Highway 6, which is both on the east side of I-35 in Waco. Bigger, better, faster, and stronger. 2,500 square foot showroom with 1,000 new products on display for you to know a lot more about. The efficiency that they have, which was already really good, but the efficiency they have now for you to come by after you have ordered or placed an order or you're coming to pick up what you have or need, steel, pipe, and metal, the efficiency is better than ever, and that was a big deal for them, but now they have a much better, much more opportunities and options in bays for you to put your pickup truck, your trailer, or even an 18-wheeler. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. Pipe, steel, and metal. They are experts at that. They are unbelievable at helping you in understanding about a metal building, including the contractors that you should contact because they have a history with them and who will do it the right way. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, doing it the right way since 1943 on Loop 340, Highway 6, east of 35 in Waco.
The right call can make all the difference on and off the field. I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. When it's time for a new car, truck, or SUV, Bird Colgan Ford is the right call. Come check out our award-winning lineup of best-selling models in their class, like the Mustang, Explorer, Expedition, F-150, and Super Duty. Make the right call for your next vehicle at Bird Colgan Ford. Bird Colgan Ford proudly supports Baylor Athletics. Sic 'em Bears.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we are, midway through the 4 o'clock hour. Taylor McCarg with us Thursdays at 4:30. ESPN joins us on 365 Sports. Taylor, thank you very much. We will maybe reflect back on Washington and Oregon, what a great classic game that was. But this week, the game that gets a lot of attention is Ohio State and Penn State. Your thoughts about those two?
Yeah, well, it's going to be a little different, in my opinion, from what we've come to know, really both of these teams offensively over the past 2 years. I think this is going to be more of a defensive struggle and about who can create explosive plays down the field throwing the football, which normally Ohio State, that's what you come to know. High-flying offenses, getting the ball downfield. But on the other side for Penn State, Drew Allar and that offense, they really haven't. That's not what they've been known for to this point in the season. And that's going to be what it comes down to is, can Penn State continue those 7, 8, 9, 10 play drives where they sustain drives and stay on the field against this Ohio State defense? And it's going to be an incredible football game. We've got a night game, and I'm excited to watch it in that early window. And early season implications for the East, obviously, with these two, and then Michigan there at the top. But again, this is going to come down to me on the defensive side of the ball for both of these units.
Do you think Manny Diaz, I mean, he's had a weird run as a head coach. Do you think Manny Diaz will finally get his right job after this year at Penn State with the suffocating defense they're playing?
I don't know. The right job is an interesting way of asking it, because could he go get another head job? Yeah, absolutely. But is it something that would excite him is the question. And is it, is he going to get a head job that's in the top echelon of college football when it's clear that it didn't work out previously? So I don't know the answer, obviously. And he's going to be a name that we see come up over the next couple months once the season is over. And again, he will have jobs that are offered to him, similar to a Tom Herman that goes and takes an FAU job. It's just whether or not he wants to go back to more of a group of 5 level or even a lower type Power 5 school, because I don't think it's going to be sort of your top echelon, top 20 type program. I don't think he's going to get that kind of opportunity.
Taylor, what did you think of Oregon and Washington last weekend?
Yeah, incredible game. And I think you're starting to see those two. We just talked about the Big Ten starting to separate itself. That's what it looked like on the other side with the Pac-12. USC, obviously, with their loss. Washington State not looking as good. You're starting to just get some separation at the top between Washington and Oregon. And to me, I mean, that felt like a college football playoff type game. And, you hope that, as a fan, you hope that those are the two that we end up seeing later in the year. And I know we talked about this a couple different times to this point in the season, but you also hope for the Pac-12's sake that they don't do what they always do and cannibalize themselves in the last 3 or 4 months of or weeks of the season, and then they miss out on the college football playoff, because Washington and Oregon, I think you could put those two up against anybody in the country right now. And Penix, the last thing I'd say on that game, that was a Heisman type moment. Now there's a lot of football left to be played, but that was the first thing that I've seen really where you could say, okay, there's a reason that he's now the favorite. And if he can do that once or twice more the rest of the way, I think that's a reason he's the favorite right now for the Heisman.
Yeah, the Pac-12, which we said months ago, about the quarterback play. Caleb Williams coming off probably his worst performance. He did have the bad one against Baylor in 2021 when they benched him for Spencer Rattler. When you watch USC, it seemed like they're still explosive, but I get the feeling that they could go off the rails, not lose 4 or 5 games, but they are on the edge of going off the rails. Do you agree or not?
Well, I think the biggest thing from last week was they made Caleb Williams incredibly uncomfortable all night. They meaning Notre Dame's front four. And sometimes they were getting pressure where they weren't even having to bring a fifth or sixth defender. And you saw so much of what he does that's dynamic for them in their downfield passing game is off script, where it's either the scramble drill or he just breaks contain and takes off with his legs. And Notre Dame had a plan for that clearly, where they were not going to let him do that and make that many plays happen off script. And it showed, and a big piece of their offense went away as a result. I don't think this is a team that, at least not right now, in my opinion, that we should have on anything like a quit watch. But it is interesting that you have a player like Caleb Williams that, barring an injury, is clearly going to be the number one overall pick. And so you do wonder if this gets, one loss, okay, still see them engage. But if you see them drop two more, would not expect him, and certainly if they miss the Pac-12 championship, I wouldn't expect him to play in their bowl game. And if that becomes apparent, then that's where you see, losses happen with teams late in the season in November, where they had no business losing that game earlier in the season. But, your best player or your best couple players says they're moving on to the draft, and then, crazy things happen.
Alabama and Tennessee this week. Tennessee's played okay. I mean, they've only lost one game. They don't look as spectacular and fun as they did last year, but their defense is good. Alabama is, just a conundrum of how they're, I guess it's not a conundrum, it's Nick Saban, but how Nick Saban's been able to piece this all together. Do they continue walking the tightrope this week, having that home game there against Tennessee?
Yeah, I think, isn't it funny that after the Texas loss, we start talking about, again, the end of the dynasty and, is this Saban's last year, and whether or not it is. I just think it's interesting that we get to this last stretch of the month of October, and Alabama's sitting there right on the cusp of the top 10. They're almost a 10-point favorite against Tennessee, and if they win this game, they'll be back in the top 10 with a direct path still to the college football playoff. Now they've got to go through Georgia. At some point, they would have to beat them out of the East and win the SEC championship. But it just feels like a team that's finding their identity. They worked through the quarterback issues. They had that strange game against South Florida where it felt like, what is their identity on offense? And now it's very clear, run the football effectively. And then their passing game is basically just quick game and then take a couple deep shots a game. And that's really it. It's schemed up down the field, and I think you'll see some of that against Tennessee and what's one of the better defenses. Certainly a more improved defense from last year. I wouldn't say one of the top defenses in the SEC, but they're better from last year. But again, what stands out to me is that after felt like we were about to hit the panic button, now they're sitting there again with an inside path to getting back to the playoff.
Taylor, did you get a chance at all to watch Avery Johnson from Kansas State last week?
I did not have my eyes on that, but I know that name. I saw that name a lot on Twitter.
Yeah. No, I was just wondering because he had a big performance, and as a quarterback, I was curious if you got a chance to see him. So I'll wait till he gets to play a bit more. But Kansas State talking about now rolling with two quarterbacks. We'll see what they actually do on Saturday. But just from a quarterback's perspective, how does that play into the psyche potentially of a Will Howard, or how do you? How should that be handled? How do you kind of view the two quarterback conundrum that Chris Kleiman has, which is actually for him probably a good problem to have at this point?
Yeah, I always hated it as a player. We had a wildcat situation that we would work through, and it really was as a player, again, it was not for me. I did not like it, but we've seen it work in the past at schools where their identity is running the football and playing good defense, which I think that absolutely is Kansas State. And this is a game this week. They're favored again over TCU, and that's another team that after the loss to Oklahoma State, things got a little bit quiet. But out of the Big 12, behind Texas and Oklahoma, who else would you really feel confident in the Big 12 outside of really Kansas State? I mean, there's not a ton of depth in the conference this year, so this is a big one for them to bounce back. And we see this in college all the time, right? Where you want to just go with the hot hand. Who's your quarterback that you start the game and you have a plan in a certain direction, and if it doesn't go the way you want, then you make a switch. And it sounds like that's more or less what Kansas State's going to roll with.
Taylor, what game do you have?
I've got a good one. We've got UTSA going to FAU, and both are sitting at 2-0 in conference play. Jeff Traylor and Tom Herman, two coaches that I'm really excited about this one. We're fortunate to have it.
That's two very different personalities, though. Coach Traylor and Coach Herman.
Absolutely, no doubt. And Coach Herman recruited me back in the day, and we had them a couple of weeks ago. Really good conversation, and it's just exactly how I remember it, where you could just tell how smart he is, and he was beating me to my own questions, where I'd get 2 or 3 words into it, and he would just start answering because he knew where I was going with it. Where Coach Traylor on the other side, he wants to almost sell you that he's the all shucks a little bit. He doesn't want to come across boastful, but then you start talking ball, and it's clear why he's had this much success, and not in obviously the high school level, but in college as well, and what they've built. And incredibly humble coach, but man, you can't look past the results that they've created, and for those early season losses that they had, they still, going back to their time in Conference USA, they've won 12 straight conference games. So they've really built something spectacular in San Antonio.
Yeah, he will play that oh shucks or all shucks guy, but then he lights up when it comes to what he's done. It's been a little bit difficult, though. They had Army, they had Tennessee, so that was tough. The loss to Houston early in the season. What mentality? What's his emotional state right now?
Yeah, their mentality is us against the world right now, because they did have those losses, and he won't make the excuse, but I'll make the excuse for him. They have had a ton of injuries, and critical injuries. They've had the NFL guy on the outside at receiver, Clark, that he tore his knee up bad last year. They were hoping to have him back. It looks like he's not playing again this week. They're at the quarterback spot, at the corner, at defensive line, offensive line. They've had critical pieces go down, and Frank Harris missed 2 of the games that they lost, Army, and I don't know that it would have mattered against Tennessee, but he was out in those games as well. And so they're starting to get healthy. Last week against UAB was probably their best overall game, and I still think they're a dark horse in this conference, because SMU, I was ringing the bell for them early in the year out of the American, and they don't look like what I thought they would be. So it's too soon to count anybody out, especially Jeff Traylor and UTSA.
Taylor, thank you. Have a great broadcast. Thanks for your time. Tell Coach Traylor we said hi.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. I will.
Taylor McCarg, ESPN, former Rice quarterback, on the games coming up, and even a flashback to last week's classic game. At Oregon-Washington game, to me, is one of those that, again, I won't do it, but I wouldn't mind if I was like, I need to watch something. Go back and watch a replay of that game.
He could also
just get rid of the commercials.
He also tell Tom Herman we said hi just to mess with Tom Herman's head, because we've never met him.
Yeah, I guess you could do that.
We
had him on the show once when we were in the old radio station. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. We had him on. He's in Houston. Yeah.
I asked him about some of how they finished the year, and he was a little bit grumpy because they were swirling about him in Texas, and eventually that was absolutely true. When we come back, Craig Smoak off the radar. This is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com, our sponsor. When it comes to the Pick'em contest, you have not done that yet for this week. You can do that with the link that we put up, and I'll get Paul to pin it again if he can. But you should also just save it. I do that. I have a reminder like every Wednesday night that pops up and go, hey, make your picks, so I can go about 500. Their beef purchased it is just amazing. And in fact, right now, the aged Wagyu beef at Texas Beef House, their first public beef auction, coming up in November on the 11th at the Duval Ranch in White House, which is just outside of Tyler. It will be a live auction. You can bid in person, on the phone, and even also available online. You can contact TexasBeefHouse.com for more information. TexasBeefHouse.com will auction off Wagyu and Angus beef in 30 to 40-pound bundles, steaks, hamburger, and primals. This is the perfect time for you if you're a restaurant owner, or if you just want to get a bunch of beef for you in your deep freeze. And I have a deep freeze just off the back porch where I live, and I like to have the steaks and much of the beef from them, and of course even some other frozen goods too. It's also for homeowners like you, if that's what you are, if you're not in the restaurant business. For more information, contact Samantha or anybody at TexasBeefHouse.com. The first public beef auction, November the 11th at the Duval Ranch in White House, just outside of Tyler.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports, Tuesdays and Thursdays at around 4:45. We stop down and take a look at a grab bag of stories as it permits news-wise, and not a lot bubbling up in terms of super interesting stories coming out of, really any league right now. There's a lot of events, though, going on, and that includes right now Major League Baseball. So this will be a little bit focused on the actual games themselves as opposed to anything tantalizing or crazy off the field. But right now on the field, bottom of the third inning, we've got the NLCS Game 3 ongoing as the Phillies and Diamondbacks are underway in Arizona. Again, scoreless right now, just getting started a little while ago. Diamondbacks just got a runner on second, and home crowd seems to be getting fired up for that. I did see where the ticket prices for the Diamondbacks game had dropped dramatically based on how this series got started off with the Phillies just bludgeoning them in the first couple of games. So big need for a win here for Arizona to stay in the thick of things and to keep their fans invested. But there will be another game later on tonight as well, as the Rangers and Astros will clash in game number 4 of that series, and that will start at 7:03. So NLCS ongoing right now. Later tonight, FS1, 7:03 first pitch Central Time. Game 4, Astros at the Rangers. And last night had Game 3. And the Astros with the 8-5 win over Texas to make it a 2-1 series. So the road team has won all 3 games thus far. And this was a story of Max Scherzer coming back after a lot of time away dealing with injury. Started to get some rumors percolating last week that perhaps he was going to be healthy enough to return in the postseason. And sure enough, he got the start and, got lit up early on. It said, some pitches weren't working for him, but the Astros jumped on him early and got off to a 5-0 lead midway through that ball game. And Texas tried to scratch and claw back, but just unable to overcome that deficit. So 4 innings pitched, 5 hits, 5 runs, 4 Ks, 1 walk. All of those runs earned for Max Scherzer. Y'all's thoughts on what you saw last night, Astros and Rangers, and now what you expect later on tonight as well.
Looked like Max Scherzer hadn't pitched in a month.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it looked like. I mean, there were times where it's like, oh, man, he's got even in a bad day, you can see his stuff that he has in the way he was, but he's only going to help them later now. And I was worried about that. They were going to have to jump out on Christian Javier, which I think they have a better chance to do that against Jose Urquidy tonight. Most of the lineup has actually hit really well against Jose Urquidy in their careers. Sometimes that doesn't really matter in the postseason, though, because everything gets ratcheted up. But they're going to have to jump out on Christian Javier just to give Max a cushion to make the mistakes he made. But when Martin Maldonado's knocking in runs on you, your slider's not sliding, your curve's not curving, and you're changing and changing.
You're already going to give up runs because Yordan Alvarez is going to hit like a 3-run homer, and he's as keyed in as anyone I've seen in forever. Scherzer had good stuff. His fastball velocity was good, but the hit by pitch on Alvarez, Yordan Alvarez that got him the first. And then, of course, there was a 2-out single that Josh Young, 75% of the time, makes that play. Mm-hmm. Houston's the champion. They're not going to go down. Oh, my God, we're done. They love to play in Arlington. They're 7-1 this year. The Rangers were 22-3 in the postseason, outscoring opponents in the first 3 innings. And last night, that got flipped on them.
Yeah, it did. Josh Young, though, the Texas Tech product, had a couple of homers to keep it, close. And he's a fun player, but he does have the occasion. Third base is a hard position to play. Don't make any bones about that. But he has, on occasion, like a brain fart or error moment. And then he, like a couple games back, makes up for it with a tremendous play down the line. But, yeah, that can happen on occasion. And still, I mean, he hit 2 home runs. So he made up for any fielding. But, just a tough night for the Rangers, and not surprised. This is going to be a heck of a series. And now, I mean, does the pressure flip? Do you feel all of a sudden a super pressure if you're Texas that you've got to win this game? Or
goes back to Houston no matter what, right?
No, they've got 2 more right at home, and then it go the last 2
tonight
at Houston.
And tomorrow. But if you don't win tonight, you're going to have to play at least one game.
Oh, you're going to have to play. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So I think that if you lose tonight, you feel a lot of pressure because you don't. Even though Houston's not been good at home, you don't want them going home feeling good.
Yeah,
you would like to go up 3-1 and be able to charge it through. I will tell you one thing I did not like the Rangers did last night. I have no problem with this Creed thing at all.
Yeah.
But just based on, the Mets, their whole, 2 seasons have come tumbling down when they brought out Timmy Trumpet last year before anything had happened. Save Creed for the series, man.
Yeah.
Save it for then. Don't jump the gun. I get it. You haven't been home in a while, and it's not like you're pulling him off a world tour. Believe me, Scott Stapp's waiting at home for you to call.
Right.
He would come back. So that's where I think they made a little bit of a mistake there.
Yeah, I think it's a fun little thing, but just like everything else with the media, and I know we're part of it, but they just overdo it, and they can't help themselves because the marketing department or whoever just has to have their little moment, and they can't just let it be natural and let it be, a fun thing. They have to just, now it's all of a sudden all we hear is Creed music. All we hear about is the Creed thing, and it's so that went from a cool little locker room thing to now this big marketed story part of the series, and they've got them there at the game, and it's game freaking 3 of this. Yeah, I'm with you, dude. I hate that. I hate how the media does that.
Remember, what was it, Narco in the Mets?
That's what I'm talking about. Timmy Trumpet, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's what he just said. So, it's similar to that, but yeah, way too soon to do that. And I don't know. The marketing department was probably proud of themselves, or whoever was involved in that decision. But yeah, bring that out like Game 7 of the series, in the World Series. You're right. So, anyways, Astros Rangers coming up later on tonight, and right now, still scoreless. Phillies and Diamondbacks. Phillies lead this series. They've been in command of this series, 2-0. Meanwhile, college football. Got a couple of games coming up tonight. Had a couple last night. Sam Houston remains winless in their foray into Division I, losing in double overtime to FIU, 33-27 last night. And Diego Pavia, quarterback for New Mexico State, had a huge game as they beat up UTEP in El Paso, 28-7. Pavia's a player I see in the box score. He didn't have crazy numbers. I probably overdid that a little bit, but he's a guy I see pretty consistently in there. Seems to be a pretty scrappy and fun player, so he helped New Mexico State get the win over UTEP. But tonight, you've got Rice at Tulsa starting at 6 p.m. on ESPN2, and this obviously an important game for both, being at 3-3. You've got conference stakes as well there in the Americans, so 1-1 both. In conference play, somebody will be above 500 overall record-wise and conference record-wise. And would have asked Taylor about that, but we were kind of running low on time with him. So, yeah, Rice at Tulsa tonight at 6. And then also James Madison at Marshall, an important game out in the Sun Belt at 6 o'clock. James Madison is unbeaten at this point at 6-0. Marshall 4-2 on the year. But James Madison slight favorites here to move to 7-0. They're also 3-0 in the conference. A loss for Marshall would put them at 1-2. So pretty big for them tonight to have a good performance at home and with the big-time opponent rolling in. But James Madison can go unbeaten, and it won't matter because they have been denied once again their appeal to try and get into the postseason.
There's the tweet right
so
there.
That was already denied last spring, and they tried to give it another go. But as you see there, Charlie Baker saying that they are not going to receive a waiver as they attempt to, circumvent the rules that were in place because they're having such a good year and because it's a bowl-deserving team. But that's the rules when you make the move to level. So JMU later on tonight could possibly stay 7-0, which would be a great story, but obviously not as good as it could be if you knew they were playing for something bigger at the end of the road. But very much in the conference race.
Yeah, I don't blame them for asking.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
And because it can make you look at why the rule is in place in the first place. If you've got a team that's coming up, what would be the worst thing about having them in the bowl? I'm sure there's a reason for it that I don't know. But again, it's the rules. JMU knew it, but I don't fault them for asking. What if they go, you know what? Yeah, this kind of is an outdated rule. Maybe it's a little arbitrary. Yeah, let's go ahead and give you a waiver, and then we're going to look at this in the offseason.
Great. I agree.
Yeah, all you can do is appeal. It's like losing a lawsuit. You just appeal it and see if maybe you get a better decision and somebody has a little sympathy for you or something.
Also, probably never even crossed their mind that somebody would be this good.
Yeah.
Making the transition up.
Yeah, but they are off to a 6-0 start and very well could be 7-0 at the end of this thing. And then also tonight, you've got a little NFL action, of course, on Prime Video, kicking off at 7:15. Got the Jaguars 4-2 on the year, the Saints 3-3 on the year. That game in New Orleans, and the Jags off to a steady start. I love what Doug Peterson's doing with that team, but the Saints have been a little hit or miss. So, any thoughts on Jaguars and Saints coming up? These Thursday night games have been not very entertaining from what I've watched, and I go home and I flip it on, and it inevitably becomes background noise most of the time, these Thursday night games. But I don't know, this one's got some potential.
Yeah, Derek Carr hasn't been that great. The Saints though are okay. They're okay, and they're in the division of okay in the NFC South. The Jaguars, I keep thinking I'm waiting for them to break out. I really like what they have going, but Trevor Lawrence is a little banged up and on the short week, so maybe he won't play. If Trevor Lawrence doesn't play, then that makes the game even more So,
by the way, from Barry Crawford on James Madison, they're not in the conference race. If you're ineligible for postseason per the NCAA, you're also ineligible for the conference championship. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. You're right. So they're right there in the mix. They could very well go undefeated, and it won't matter in terms of some of the bigger prizes out there for them. So that's unfortunate. But again, that's part of the rules, and we'll see if they can't be that team that does the mythical national championship thing at the end of the road if they end up unbeaten or something. But yeah, that is a shame that they won't get that opportunity no matter how they play the rest of the way. I wanted to make mention of this. Last night you had the WNBA Finals as the Aces won the series and the championship for the second straight year, 3-1. Thrilling 70-69 victory over the New York Liberty. And with our WNBA breakdown, here's Paul Catalina.
It happened. That's it.
I got to tell you this, and I'm not trying to be I'm not being sarcastic.
I am with the Paul thing. I'm not making fun of the WNBA, Paul, but I am with Paul. Yeah,
I saw where somebody won back-to-back titles. Okay, because it was all in my damn timeline on my phone, ESPN, and they're talking about a dynasty. And they're doing everything they can. I know the popularity is much more there, but I didn't even know it was the finals. And that's not trying to say that I'm not paying attention because I know some of the great players in the league, whatever. I don't know them, but it was like trying to like make up the Lakers or the Celtics or whoever. But it was all over my ESPN timeline today when I woke up.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was the finals for the sport. So, I mean, it's, something that they show and they promote. So they're going to have it all over the place, especially when the only alternative really last night was baseball. So, that's all over and done with, to your point. I don't know what the audience was for it or not, but Las Vegas is a team that is on a pretty good roll right now. So there was that as well. And I'll go ahead and just leave it at that for right now, and that's a few things off the radar.
I do need to make mention of one thing because I want Smokey's opinion on it. They announced the Veterans Committee Baseball Hall of Fame candidates, and Jim Leland and Cito Gaston, Lou Piniella are on it, but the name that's brought out the most controversy is former umpire Joe West.
I know he was controversial. I think he was a curmudgeon. He was probably one of those that fought the changes from, was an National League and an American League umpire, but the guy probably umpired a bucket load of World Series games, and I don't know what the criteria is of others who are in the Hall of Fame that were baseball umpires.
Yeah, I don't either.
So I can't. It's not like I can compare, Pete Rose to Ty Cobb to Tony Gwynn. I know Rose is not in it, so I can't compare umpires.
I think that people, I would like to know what he was actually thought of as an umpire as opposed to a showman. I think the biggest thing was he really he, more than any official I've ever seen, liked to really make sure that you knew he was calling a game.
Yeah, Google Emmett Ashford. Emmett Ashford, a former home plate, of course, umpire on the bases as well. That is a showman. And he was a tremendous personality. I don't think he's probably in the Baseball Hall of Fame, but Emmett Ashford would put on a show when it comes to what he did calling a game. Very similar to some of the NFL umpires that back in the day. Who was the one from Mount Pleasant that was like, first down?
Oh, Red Cashin.
Yeah, something like that. All right, Craig, that's it? Paul, was that all?
Yeah, that's it.
So I don't know about Joe West being a Hall of Famer, and it surely hell is not Angel Hernandez.
No.
All right, when we come back, MC Gusto on the James Madison, what are the reasons for the transition period? Paul, you discussed this a little bit the other day when we brought up the story. One of the issues they want to make sure, even if you are personnel ready to make the move, talent-wise or whatever, roster-wise and depth chart-wise, is that you're not making the move up in an NCAA division just to be a money grab.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's kind of a weird thing because it totally is, because that's what you want to do is make more money. But yeah, they've got to make sure that you're really serious about doing it. Like you're not going to short term do this and then go back down. Like you've got to go through all that. But yeah, it is weird that they say not just to be a money grab, and everything in the NCAA right now is a money grab.
Kyle Visser on the WNBA. Craig, that is off our radar as well, and we would like to keep it off our radar.
Yeah, that's why it was briefly mentioned, and more as a poke to Paul than anything, because I just know he loves to break those games down. And do you have your mock draft ready for 23-24 yet?
Where's Angel Reese going?
Number one.
There you go.
Number one.
Is she eligible?
Do you think she'll go? Okay, first of all, she probably ended up
Angel Reese and then Caitlin Clark.
Ahead of Caitlin Clark?
Mm-hmm. That's what I'll do. That's what I'm going to say right now. I'm making that prediction that Angel Reese goes 1, Caitlin Clark goes 2.
Garrett.
Yes.
Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark?
Oh.
Not that painful.
Probably Angel Reese.
Oh, yeah, the height.
Yeah.
Power forward.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds right.
When we come back, 5 o'clock hour, we're not done. We continue with Mickey Spagnola, but next for us is the ever-famous and always accurate college football picks. That's next. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marco's Pizza with 5 locations in the Waco area, Hewitt, Woodway, China Spring, Belmead, and also in Robinson. I drove by the one in Robinson. In fact, I drive by it. It's just off the loop, which is right there on Robinson Highway, on my way to go to see Dr. Steve Childress and Stonewood Dental. If you like pepperoni, or if you like sausage pizza, or you like the combination, they have what is a pepperoni magnifico. Every possible part of the pie is covered with pepperoni, and a couple of different types of pepperoni. And then on top of that, they have the same thing with sausage. There's a TV commercial for a pizza place right now, and they have both the combination of pepperoni sausage magnifico. It's delicious. It's a heavy pie. I always like to get the Chicago cut just because I don't want the pizza to fall off when I pull it out of the box. Now, I'll tell you this, they have wings, they have salads, they have sandwiches, they have cold soft drinks. What you want, they have when it comes to pizza. Bob Mock is the owner, 5 locations, been in the pizza business for a long, long time, and knows it and has it. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors. Baylor Athletics Trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Samantha Duvall, Marketing Director for TexasBeefHouse.com. You know all about their great Wagyu beef and product they have. You can go to TexasBeefHouse.com for anything you want to order. But, Samantha, thanks for your time. There's an auction coming up in the month of November. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so November 11th, we're having our first public beef auction. It's going to be here at our ranch in White House, Texas. It's going to be a live auction. You can bid in person, you can bid on the phone, or we'll also have it online. And we're auctioning off Wagyu and Angus beef. We'll have 30 to 40 pound bundles. They'll be full of steaks, hamburger, and primals. This is perfect for not only the restaurant owners, but also homeowners.
So if somebody wants to load up your deep freezer with some great product from a place that is just delivering all of the time, with Wagyu from their ranch to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
During Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels, shop our great selection of brand new Ram trucks designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. Allen Samuels in Waco is the place to shop Ram trucks. Come by and see our large selection today or browse online at AllenSamuelsDCJ.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones Investments and financial advisor Chuck Verno, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, there has been an upheaval, absolute upheaval when it comes to our college picks, where I'm going to ask you to do what you cannot do. You won't listen to me, but Garrett's going to put up the graphic and look at the bottom line in gold. Don't look at our picks yet, and I know you already have. Paul Catalina was running away with it along with Emory, and oh, my God.
Yeah. 1-4 last week. And the one I'm kicking myself about the most was BYU and TCU. Because that would have, I mean, it's only going to make me one game better. Dan Lanning kind of, you know,
he screwed you.
Screwed me. Yeah, I wasn't going to use that word.
He screwed the
but
Ducks, too.
He did that. So those were kind of the flip games for me last week. But Craig's been on a bit of a heater anyway.
Yeah, and it's uncomfortable.
But yeah, now I've got to have a good week here. I've got to have a good week. I'm not worried about what you guys are doing at this point. Right now, I have to worry about getting wins.
You got to just go through the process.
Yeah,
Paul.
I got to get wins.
Garrett, you're kind of slowly, but it looks like you're just slowly getting yourself back into this.
4-1 last week.
That's what I'm saying.
He had some 0-5.
I'm trying to give him
progress.
some love. Emory, of course, cheats. He's the one that puts the graphic up. Craig Smoak has gone from what was, I think, pretty much close to the bottom, surging now with a 1-game lead. The magic number, of course, still far away. Craig, what have you done?
I just picked the right teams, I guess, is what I did. Nothing special. I mean, you guys are blowing this, I think, a little bit out of proportion because I could very well go like 1-4 next week and everybody else goes 4-1.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter, although we have a lot of similar picks. But, I think the TCU BYU game, like that one was just obvious to me. I am not a believer in BYU and that 4-1 record that they had at the time. But, didn't expect Josh Hoover to play all that well and just got fortunate that, Washington was able to win a close game.
That could have gone either way.
Yeah, got fortunate Oregon State won.
Yep.
So, I mean, that was just luck. I mean, a lot like that's what I say with these games is I've seen other picks, and if we added like 5 games that are pretty easy to pick, we could all be like every week, like we're 9-2 or we're 8-4 or whatever. But we pick 5 hard games that are coin flips, and so or close to them. And so last week it wasn't anything rocket science. It was just I picked what I thought was the better team and got fortunate that the ball bounced that way.
All right, so Craig's a game up on Emory and a game up on me. So I have slowly, like a silent assassin, just kind of hung around here. And Paul needs a bounce-back week, and Garrett also. I cannot take the lead this week because Craig and I, right down the pipeline, have the same pick. So he's at least a game up on me. Now, here we go. Paul Catalina has been playing this little poor, pitiful Seminoles all week long about Duke and Mike Elko. Yes, they're really good, but all of us don't agree that it's going to be a game that Duke can win.
Yeah, I think the number is too big. 13.5 seems a little bit big against this good Duke defense. The only way I would see that happens is if Duke makes a mistake late. So I think it's going to be a fairly close game and hard fought, but I think FSU has too much. Riley Leonard, even if he does play, is he 100% completely healthy because their offense really goes when he runs the ball. So I think FSU holds on here. The one that scares me the most is actually Miami in about 3 weeks for FSU because Miami might be kind of up against the wall and would love nothing more than to ruin FSU season at that point.
What Duke has done up to this point has been great, but I just think that Florida State has a bit too much firepower for them. Hey, even if you limit Keon Coleman, there's plenty of other guys that can hurt you. So, yeah, I mean, Duke's been fun, but no Riley Leonard as well. That's just, to me, is a little bit too much to overcome for the Blue Devils. So, yeah, give me Florida State.
Yeah, I'd take FSU. I told Paul, and I said this, and don't you ever forget, I said even back in like July or early August that they were going to play for the national championship.
Yeah,
I did.
I hope you're right.
I do too, for your sake, because you're friend.
Yeah.
All right, now, Alabama just kind of slowly just twisting and churning and kind of grinding through because we're so spoiled by what they do. Tennessee last year got them. Alabama and Tennessee this week.
Yeah, and I want to circle back to something from a little while ago. When we were talking about Alabama, was that Taylor that we were talking about and how everybody initially said, like, oh, my gosh, Bama's dead? It's just clicks, man. Like, that's all that is, and that's been the case for, like, years and years now. Everybody wishing or hoping or predicting the demise of Alabama. And what happens every single time? It's like one of those things where if you just say it for 20 years, then year 20, you're finally right and you can brag about it. But, yeah, I mean, Alabama's still Alabama. I think this ought to be a great game. But I do think that their demise was, again, a little bit overdone. And they're not what they have been in years past. I'm not pretending that, but they are sitting there at freaking 6-1 and favorites to go to 7-1. But this is going to be a heated rivalry game. I just like Bama a bit more overall as a team. I think that they're finding their way there offensively, and Milroe's playing with some confidence. And on the other side, I just don't quite trust Joe Milton to roll into Tuscaloosa. And I know it's not all on his shoulders, but I don't trust him to go in there and architect this thing to a win. So I'm going with Bama.
Yeah, there's a difference between being done and being vulnerable for the first time ever. They're not done, but they're vulnerable. And what's made it kind of maddening, if you were one of these people, I would assume that you wanted the Alabama dynasty to be over, is that they're vulnerable, and the rest of the SEC, instead of pouncing on them like wild dogs, is also vulnerable.
Right. Yeah.
No one, it's not like the power went out of them and into somebody else. It just went out of them a little bit, but they're still the best coached team, especially on that side of the SEC. Now, where I think will bear interest is over the haul of adding Oklahoma and Texas to this mix and what they're going to do schedule-wise. Can Alabama, cut off the leaks this offseason, or is it going to be more of a struggle? Is this more of what's to come? It's going to be harder for teams to have a chokehold on things like Bama did, but they're at home against Tennessee. This game is probably going to look like a 1997 SEC game more than it would a 2023 SEC game, but I think Bama wins at home. They don't lose at home, and B, they don't lose to people 2 years in a row.
All right, I'd pick Bama.
Yeah, I think it's like Oklahoma's fan base. If we really wanted to, if we just want to stir the hornet's nest, you can get a huge reaction by just saying whatever.
Nick Saban's lost it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the thing with the Saban stuff too. Although I think Alabama probably plays off of it pretty well because they've been hearing it for so long. But there's no doubt they're vulnerable. Like you said, the whole SEC is down in comparison. It's not like there's the Burrow-led Tigers or someone like that's waiting in the weeds for them. They're still at the top, except for obviously Georgia on the other side of that coin.
And who knows? Maybe somebody can still kind of give them a hickey in the SEC West, and it could be Tennessee. But all of us except for Emory, who must have insider trading. Now, across the board, and I thought this one might be a little bit of a mixture. Across the board, TCU, after what they did with Josh Hoover, the quarterback. Kansas State, though, at home after what they did in Lubbock, and it seems as if maybe they got some of their mojo back. This should be fun. I think the winner of this game remains alive. The loser's done.
Yeah, I do think that, TCU will play a lot better. I think that they are maybe going to come together a little bit. Josh Hoover, after talking to Jared Wiley, it seems like rallying around having to play the backup quarterback has helped them get a little bit of, juice that they didn't have in previous weeks. But this is Kansas State at home. Kansas State's a very physical team. And the last time they played a team that played that physical was Iowa State, and they lost. So leaning Kansas State here, but I do expect this to be a pretty good one.
Yeah, I think it'll be a really good game. I don't blame anybody if they pick TCU here because for all we know, Josh Hoover might have been the secret ingredient. But, being in Manhattan with the Avery Johnson stuff last week of TCU now having to prepare for the possibility of both, the likelihood of both guys, and then, what are the odds that both guys aren't playing very well? I don't think TCU's defense is so dominant. Although they looked good last week. They destroyed BYU, but BYU's got one of the worst offenses in college in the Big 12, certainly. And defensively as well, quite frankly, statistically. But that was a good win for TCU. Is it a launching pad? I'm not quite ready to go there just yet. But if they beat K-State, then absolutely we can start talking about how they are suddenly headed in a much different direction than they were at the beginning of the year. But I'm not ready to believe that'll be the case, so I'm going K-State here.
All right, I have the Wildcats. Chris Kleiman. Garrett, you want to you're being shy today. Jump in.
Oh, I'm just like Josh Hoover, I don't think going into a hostile environment as a freshman, I don't know if he's ready for that. If you look at TCU defensively, they've taken a significant step back from last year. How they managed to corral Avery is going to be difficult for them, and I like K-State at home. I like their culture, everything about them, and I think they're going to right the ship.
All right, so all that one, we're all in agreement there like we are with Florida State. That's boring, but, again, that might say quite a bit. USC coming off getting, did I say bludgeoned earlier this week by Notre Dame? I think that's a fair term. USC at home against Utah, which is capable of doing that with kind of the way they play, yet without Rising, they're okay, and they're better than okay, but your thoughts here?
I'm betting on Cam this week to not have a bad game again. That's what I'm betting on.
Caleb?
Caleb. Yeah, Cam. Caleb.
Because if it's Cam Newton, I'm going to pick whoever he's playing for.
Yeah, no, I'm betting on I'm thinking about Cam Rising, actually. I'm betting on Caleb not to have a bad game a second week in a row. Look, he had one bad game. He's out of the Heisman race as it stands right now, but this is the guy who is the reigning Heisman Trophy winner for a reason. Utah's defense is spectacular in what they've done, rotating between two guys who are blah at quarterback is even more impressive and speaks to what Kyle Whittingham and Andy Ligwood have going there. But I'm just going to go Trojans at home in a game that they're probably going to struggle a little bit because of Utah's defense, but I don't think Caleb's going to have two bad games in a row. And not having Cam Rising in this game is great for the Trojans because he owned them last year.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about what has been a turnaround, honestly, because you just reminded me when you said, we're all picking K-State, that's boring. I'm not looking at everybody else's picks because earlier on I'm like, everybody's picking them. I need to do that. And the last couple weeks, I just don't even look at them whatsoever, and I just pick my own.
After last
because I used to worry about, everybody's got the same picks, and there's no way, and that's just a stupid way to do it. So that's what I've stopped doing.
If you'll notice, we do reply all, but I just send mine to Levi separately.
Yeah. But that is, part of it, I guess. But yeah, with USC, I trust Caleb Williams is going to have a big bounce back game after what we saw last week, and I feel much better about USC being able to find ways to score points than Utah being able to find ways to score points. Even though USC's defense is not that great, Utah's offense obviously is not nearly what it should be with the quarterback situation with Brant Keithy also, not a part of the equation. So they're not what they expected to be, and that's a little bit too much for me to think that they're going to roll into L.A. and grab a win from a USC team that's coming off of a loss, and I bet pretty pissed off with what happened last week. So I'm thinking this is a Caleb game, and that'll outweigh whatever Utah is able to do defensively.
Are they more pissed off than Steve Sarkisian and UT?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would hope so.
All right. Penn State, Ohio State, and this makes sense. By the way, Garrett has Utah. You want to explain that?
I just think Utah's the more physical team.
Okay.
USC's too finesse. They can't really handle that. My only concern is the lack of offensive production from Utah. I think that's probably going to bite me in the end with US. And, mention come off that loss to Notre Dame. But just given the success the Utes have had over USC and their physical brand of football going into L.A., to me, that's a cause for an upset.
All right, and then we go to the mother of all the games, it appears, with Penn State in a mission collision course with Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State eventually, but this one's first. Penn State on the road in the Horseshoe against the Buckeyes.
This is a great chance for James Franklin to get that signature, dub, in which he's going to have two of them this year, at least, if they want to be in the college football playoff discussion. I think this game is going to be so tooth and nail and tough. The only thing I'm saying is that I just think that James Franklin is going to have them ready to get that signature dub. He's won there before. Granted, that was not a great Ohio State team that he beat, so at least he's gotten that monkey off his back when it comes to winning in Columbus. I'm picking Penn State. Just a gut feeling. This is such a toss-up game.
Yeah, there was again, looking at last week, is just you didn't really make a wrong pick by picking Oregon. You were on the wrong side of the coin. I feel like this is one of those games right here, right? If you pick Penn State, you got a totally legitimate reason to feel that way. If you pick Ohio State, you got a totally legitimate reason to feel that way. Part of playing in Columbus was a factor in my decision here. But, yeah, it's a coin flip, and I just trust the home team and the team that's done it more often than not to get the job done once again in what should be a tight and thrilling contest. But I definitely gave a lot of thought to Drew Aller and the Nittany Lions. I just, again, I flipped that coin. It landed on the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I just at home, and I had to stop myself before and go, okay, they don't have Garrett Wilson. I know that they don't have Smith and Jigba. They don't have those type of players, but they still have weapons. And the young quarterback, I'm going to take Ohio State.
And Marvin Harrison Jr. And then Mecca Ekubos.
I'm telling you, they used to have four of him, it seemed like to me. The way that Wilson and Njigba Smith and all the guys, Smith and Jigba and all those guys, it seemed like they They do have, Igbuke, the other receiver who's pretty good. It just doesn't seem like they have exploded.
Well, they don't have an NFL quarterback.
Well,
it's going in the top 5, and that's part of the issue.
It's
not the receivers; it's the quarterback. They don't have C.J. Stroud back there, or Justin Fields, or they've got Kyle McCord,
which has affected the production. Although Harrison's had a pretty big year, despite it just at 4 of his 6 games he's over 100 yards receiving. Okay. Garrett, you took the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, I feel like this is the best team James Franklin has had, and if he's going to do it, he's going to make that next jump. It's got to be this year. I think going on the road with that defense they have against a freshman quarterback can help. I know it's difficult anytime you go into the horseshoe, but I think they're built for their style of play is built for this. And if you can't do it this year, you're never going to do it if you're James Franklin.
All right, there we go. So right now, Craig Smoak with a 1-game lead. Emory. And I am right there, a game back. Paul has gone into that Rangers late season funk, but maybe they can turn it around just in time for the postseason.
Look at a rally.
Garrett is now just 2 back of Paul. Never thought I would say that.
Because, coming.
He's like, Dion, you're coming. All right, thank you guys for the picks.
Yeah, should be another fun weekend of games, and I just wanted to pass along that Jim Harbaugh has now released a statement. If y'all are interested in hearing that.
I am. All right.
I want to make it clear that I and my staff will fully cooperate with the investigation into this matter. I do not have any knowledge or information regarding the University of Michigan football program illegally stealing signals, nor have I directed any staff member or others to participate in an off-campus scouting assignment. I have no awareness of anyone on our staff having done that or having directed that action. I do not condone or tolerate anyone doing anything illegal or against NCAA rules. No matter what program or organization that I have led throughout my career, my instructions and awareness of how we scout opponents have always been firmly within the rules. Pursuant to NCAA rules, I will not be able to comment further while this investigation takes place. So I didn't know anything. I didn't do anything.
It's like a coach is in a search and his name comes up, and I haven't talked to anybody like Dickert, and you said, well, yeah, but your agent has been.
So you're like, if they are doing it, when you say that, here's what I would caution Jim Harbaugh against that. Is that when you say that, you're already preemptively doing the Rick Pitino thing. Like, listen, I know that there were hookers and parties and all that. Like, I didn't know that. I know you guys found that out. I found out when you did. Well, that also that's not the best way to do it, because if they are, then your excuse is, so your assistants set up this thing without your knowledge so that they could do what?
Yeah.
I like that, and maybe it didn't happen. That's kind of a mistake in my part. I would go, we're cooperating, and we'll see what happens.
Well, I saw the note that he was initially not supposed to release a statement because it's an NCAA investigation. You let the school do it or the conference or whatever. But in, I guess, in case he was cleared to be able to do that through his attorney, and his attorney might have, I don't know, but Harbaugh's a pretty smart guy to write that, and they put it out there. It's 5:32. Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Cowboys with a critical win to get to 4-2 after especially a weekend when the 49ers and Eagles lost. He is next. We'll also jump in the chat room for a little bit or two. And Paul's Top 5. This is 365 Sports. Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans. I mentioned earlier this week, yes, they have a 48-foot walk-in humidor. They have all the brands of the great cigars you want. My favorite is Rocky Patel. But there's Ashton, there's Padron, there's Cohiba, there is Romeo and Julieta. My Father, they're in there. Beautiful boxes. Or even if you want to just get one of these, or one of these. I like a La Fontana, which has got a little bit of a sweet taste to it. They have CBD product to help you fall asleep at night if you toss and turn. And they have THC product for those who have very serious and chronic pain. It's there with Carol Ashley and also Cheyenne. But I was there the other day to buy some cigars, and behind the counter where you check out were 4 collectibles, glass-framed collectibles. One was the picture of Nolan Ryan with the bloody lip when the ball came back at the mound, hit him in the lip, and it's a famous picture of Nolan Ryan. Also one with Adrian Peterson, one with Albert Pujols, and others. And they have collectibles behind the front or the checkout counter. And so they're now doing that too. I will stay in touch with Carol, Ashley, and also Cheyenne as they get updated framed collectibles. They were $200 a piece. And man, they were really, really nice. It's Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
This is 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with Mickey Spagnola of DallasCowboys.com.
Prescott, fire, caught, Lamb, touchdown.
Brought to you by the First National Bank of Central Texas, with 5 locations to serve you.
Mickey Spagnola with us, 365 Sports on Thursdays at around 5:30. He joins us. Cowboys coming off what was the win against the Chargers in L.A. Mickey, I was going to ask you this. I said, I'm going to ask you this about, was that a good defensive game, or was that as hard to cover and watch as it was for me?
It was pretty hard to watch just because the officials decided they were going to take over the game and call 20 penalties that were accepted. Because on several plays, there were multiple penalties on the same play.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of disrupted the flow of, there was no flow to the game, as a matter of fact. And on the biggest, basically, play on the, I called it the Keystone Cops punt, there was a face mask, a hand to the face by the guy that was blocking Jalen Tolbert that we don't need to call that. We'll just let this mad scramble take place.
Buck, during the conversation on the air, obviously with Troy Aikman, how many times during the play, if you guys watched the game, did you hear him say there's a flag on the play? At least, I guess at least 20, maybe 27, I don't know, but it just seemed like that was more than anything else it's caught for 17 yards.
Number one, why does that happen to the Cowboys? And why does it happen on national TV?
Well, because the Cowboys,
the
Cowboys are a dirty team, Mickey. That's it. Bottom line.
I mean, they had 11 and the Chargers had 9.
I know.
It's like, why can't that happen when, I don't know, Cleveland plays Tampa Bay? It's always the Cowboys. These guys are going to set a record for penalties called. It's unbelievable. But to answer your question, that's why it was hard to watch, because there was just no flow to it.
Mickey, Michael Gallup had a lot of targets the other night. He has not gotten going yet really this year. Now, the offense hasn't really gotten going to the way that they expected to this year. You had said that he looked like his old self working through all this. Where do you think the disconnect is coming with Michael Gallup right now?
I'm not real sure. He's had some opportunities. One of them he's got a catch. I think the other one was a little high. I know there was a couple. And he just seems to be involved in all these kind of contested plays. Like, I don't know if he's not completely getting open, if the passes aren't more perfect. But yeah, I mean, in training camp, I swear he was lighting it up. It just seems like these last couple games, there was a huge disconnect on this offense. I mean, if you look at 3 of the last 4 games, they hadn't scored more than 20 points. And the 20 was this game. Would they have 16 against Arizona and 10 against San Francisco? So it's almost like this offense has been on a roller coaster. Either they score 40 or they score 15, and I think that's something that's got to be fixed. I was writing about it for tomorrow in my column that so far, after 6 games, Dak's got 6 touchdown passes. That factors out the 17 for the season, which would be an 8-year career low, except for, the 2020 season when he only played 5 games. But even playing 5 games in 2020, he had 9 touchdown passes before the ankle injury. So, yeah, they've got to find a better continuity to this offense if they expect to go where they want to go. Otherwise, the defense better not give up more than 17 points. And God forbid if they give up 42.
They also haven't gotten the running game going. How much do you attribute that to the offensive line hasn't played more than a couple full games together?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. But again, they were winning games with backups playing on the offensive line. I know they've only been together for 2 weeks since the end of the 2021 season. Or let's put it this way, to have their projected starting 5 on the field at the same time. So not only have they not played in games, but they've only had 2 weeks of practice, which constitutes 1 padded practice in each of those 2 weeks. So, look around the league. The teams that are probably doing the best are the ones that haven't suffered injuries on the offensive line. There are just not enough offensive linemen to go around. And I think you've heard me say this before, that's why the alternative leagues struggle, because there's not enough offensive line for the NFL, let alone to, supplement, 8 games, 10 games, whatever they play with offensive linemen. Because let's face it, no one grows up and says, boy, I want to be a guard. Right?
Well, that's me.
Anybody ever heard anybody say that?
Paul, did you?
No, look, they made me one. I wanted to be a fullback.
See, it reminds me, and stop me if you heard this before, or maybe you got different listeners. You remember Joe Brodsky, the old Cowboys
Yep.
Running back coach? Well, he was a very successful high school coach in the Miami area. And one day we got into this discussion about putting a roster together. And he goes, well, look, here's what happens when I was in high school, when I was coaching high school. We got the first first day of practice. We got all the guys together. So you start doing all these drills, and he goes, well, I find the best athlete, and that's my quarterback. The next best athlete, he's my running back. After that, it's like, okay, these guys are pretty fast. Now, who can catch the ball? All right, you're my wide receivers, and if you can't catch but you got speed, you're my cornerback. Then you find your defensive end and your linebackers. And he basically filled out all the guys, and he goes, oh, and all the rest of you guys, you're on the offensive line. And there's some truth to it, right?
Right.
No one says I want to be a center. And so, and
they wouldn't let me do that either.
Right. Hey, I got a chance to do it only off to the side because I would never play, right? So when they were practicing, I would deep snap to the poor kicker because he needed somebody to do it because the guy that was going to do it in the game had to practice, right? So, yeah, I just think the offensive line, there's not enough of them. And the way they're trained in college, and you guys see, the college game, they're not run blocking, right? They're just sitting up and trying to pass block. And so, yeah, I think, and then here's the other thing, and Mike McCarthy's talked about this. The hardest group to put together is the offensive line, and in the off season, they don't allow them to practice, right? You can't put pads on. So how do you play offensive line without practicing with pads on? You got to sit there and play with your hands, right? You play patty cake. And then you get to training camp, and it's like, well, no, we can't have too many practices and only so many with pads on. And so that group, which is the hardest to prepare, doesn't get enough work. And during the season, one padded practice a week.
Mickey, how much? I'm sorry.
No, that's what I was just going to say. So it's difficult. And it's difficult to have enough of those guys, let alone if you get injuries and have to replace them with somebody that barely makes the roster.
So a week before they get smothered by San Francisco, everything, earthquake. And then how much on the weekend, because this thing with with the Chargers could have gone either way. And we know that. And yet it's the same weekend that they somehow find a way, in an ugly game, but they find a way, where Philadelphia and San Francisco both lose.
That's the NFL, right? Every time you come to a conclusion after one game, it gets wiped out the next. Like the Cowboys lose 42-10, they're never going to win another game. And San Francisco's never going to lose one because they're the best football team on God's green earth. And then they get beat 19-17 when the rookie kicker misses the game winner from 41 yards. Which, by the way, got to appreciate Brandon Aubrey because his game winner was from 39 yards, and he made it. So that was the difference between the Cowboys winning and San Francisco losing this past weekend. And Aubrey's made now 16 straight. He's 16 for 16 to start his career. He's too short of the all-time NFL record for most consecutive field goals made to start a career. You know who's got the record? Some guy from Cleveland by the name of Travis Coon in 2015. You remember him, don't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Poster of him on the wall.
I was about to mention Luke Rosa or the guy that played in 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, that what he's done is pretty darn remarkable. But this whole season so far for the Cowboys, 6 games, it's been a roller coaster. Yeah. And they've played 4 of the 6 on the road, by the way, and 3 of them on the coast, either left or right, and all those night games. So the travel at some point, I'm not making an excuse, but it takes a toll.
Yeah. Mickey, Micah Parsons, of course, he made the big play at the end of the game, but both San Francisco and the Chargers had pretty effective ways of play calling around him and keeping him from being the factor that he's been in earlier games. The bye week probably falls at a great time for Dan Quinn to figure out what he can do to kind of relight that candle, doesn't it?
Come at me again. We kind of got some inner.
Yeah. So Micah Parsons, not as much of a factor the last couple of weeks. Of course, the end of the game, he had the sack, which you can't, hold him down that long. Do you think that this week Dan Quinn is in the lab trying to figure out what the other teams have figured out to try to keep Micah from being the just absolute hurricane force winds that he's been?
Well, I think part of it is, and I understand his pass rush capabilities, but did you see the play he had the sack on?
Yeah.
He initially gets double teamed by the center and the guard because he's lined up as a defensive tackle. And then he beats the block of the fullback or the running back to get to the quarterback. Well, when he's on the edge, either people are running right at him or they're double teaming him. That's why I like the fact that they were forced, and I don't know how many snaps it was, but a lot in the second half, to play linebacker and not have his, standing there on the line of scrimmage where they know where he's at. At some point, teams are like, okay, we're going to sacrifice something, but that dude's not beating me anymore. I know if he lines up there, we're double teaming him and we'll set our blocking schemes. And I think that's happening more and more. And, now there's stubborn coaches out there, you guys, where, by God, my tackle can take care of that. I'm not changing. Well, okay, don't change, and he's going to beat you probably 5 times, 6 times a game. But at linebacker, they can move him around, and he's off the line of scrimmage, and it's harder to double team a linebacker than it is a true defensive end. That's why, the sack he got, he was lined up as they had a 4-man front, and he was lined up as a defensive tackle. Now, one of the ways they've tried to free him up is playing a 5-man front and put him outside the defensive end. So now you got a choice. You want to double team DeMarcus Lawrence or you want to single him and double Micah Parsons. So, and in spite of all that, he's on pace to have a sack a game, which would get you to 17.
Yeah, they're gonna find ways, and he'll have to react. Dan Quinn has to put him in other positions, but when the game was on the line, they needed that one big play to seal it. They got it from him. And Mickey, as always, we appreciate your time. Didn't get a chance to talk much about the Rams, the Eagles in 2 weeks, but you got to worry about the Rams first after what was a critical win to not go to 3-3, but go to 4-2 against the Chargers. We appreciate your time. Have a great weekend.
Okay, thanks, David.
Mickey,
and just remember this, 5 of the next 7 games are at home.
Absolutely. Rams at home, Eagles on the road, Giants at home, who they always beat, and then the Panthers on the road, and they, of course, are struggling in Washington, the Commanders at home, who they most of the time beat them too. Yeah. They got 3 games in a row at Washington, Seattle. That's that Thanksgiving run.
Right. Yeah, the Thanksgiving and after run is devastating for the Cowboys.
Eagles. Well, the Seahawks aren't bad. Seahawks at home, but the Eagles at home. The Bills and Dolphins and the Lions. 5-1 right now, and then the last game against Washington in D.C. Or wherever that stadium is. When we come back, Paul Catalina.
Hold on just one second. We're just going to go right to it. Garrett's just loading up.
When we get Garrett to load that up, Paul Catalina, and, of course, his top 5.
Yeah, but, no, the back half of that schedule is really tough for the Cowboys. If they can navigate through, because they got to put some wins together, because you would think that even if they are a playoff team, they're not going to win all those games against the Dolphins and Bills and Lions and Eagles, all that back-to-back. There's going to be some losses they take in there. So, yeah, they've got to start putting together some wins right now. And the Rams are no slouch either.
That's why if they would have dropped to 3-3 and then they play Rams or Eagles. Yeah. All right.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5. Brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 surprise quarterbacks. I'm going to go through and and pull these from different positions at different times during the year, but there's a couple guys on this list that I might owe apologies to, at least at this point in the season. But we'll start out number 5, TJ Finley from Texas State, who we got to see first game of the season. He played very well against Baylor. And look, this is an SEC quarterback who was at 2 SEC schools and then found his way to Texas State. He's played really well. He's a nice fit for G.J. Kinney in that offense. But TJ Finley, a bit of a surprise, especially given the exit at Auburn. And I still want. I know it's a personality conflict or whatever he had or whatever happened with Hugh Freeze. I would think that TJ Finley's better than who they have on the roster right now, but they made up their mind, and he's played pretty well here at Texas State.
I think what is kind of like the uncertainty of just the juggling of that job and whether he was going to play or not. I think and obviously it's Texas State. He knows that he's the guy, even though there's a little bit of a question about that originally. But, yeah, I mean, he's played well. They've lost a couple of games. So the talk about when they beat Baylor in the opener of like, oh, GJ's just going to come in and roll through everybody and, Texas State's going to, be on, on the road to glory right out of the gates. No, they've hit a couple of stumbling blocks, but, no, they've played well. He's done a good job for them and has held on to that job. And, yeah, they're going to be fun to continue watching so long as GJ sticks around there and continues to build that program.
Number 4.
And he's going to be there. I mean, he's just a sophomore, so he's got more time.
Yeah, number 4, Graham Mertz at Florida. He was the definition of kind of just there at Wisconsin. He had a couple of good games. And look, it's still early, but the Gators are 5-2. He just had an excellent game against South Carolina. And Billy Napier has found a something here in Graham Mertz, and good for Graham. Way to go. I thought it was a little bit surprising that they just let him roll out there and wear number 15. I mean, they got a statue of the real guy out there outside wearing that number, but hey, more power to him, and they've played well. Much better, I think, than a lot of people thought early on in the season. And the talk about Billy Napier being on the hot seat in year 2, I think it was kind of bogus anyway, but I think he's proved it with the way the Gators have improved. They're still not world beaters or anything, and they got to play Georgia here soon, so that probably brings everybody back down to earth. But Graham Mertz has played well for the Gators so far this season, not turned the ball over a lot at all.
Yeah, no, he's been much better than expected. I think for those that figured like the play would be whatever the worst of his play was at Wisconsin, and that's just would be what translated. No, it's been some good stuff. Like you say, he's protected the football. Probably getting sacked a little bit too much, but that's not necessarily on him per se. But I think he's done as good of a job as you could have expected going into this thing, and he was never going to be the guy that was going to lead you himself to the promised land. So he's done well enough for them to be sitting pretty with just a couple of losses and very much in the mix.
Yeah, almost 1,900 yards passing, 12 touchdowns, 2 picks, has been sacked, though 19 times, like you said, Craig. Number 3, Jack Plummer at Louisville, and Louisville off to the fantastic start. And sometimes when guys are 3-time transfers, you're like, all right, well, I kind of felt, and this might be more the case than it is, but I kind of felt with Jeff Brom, he was like, okay, I need somebody who can run my offense and we'll get through on the other side and figured the quarterback's going to be next. But Plummer's played really, really well for them, and it is a large part of why they've had that great start. The loss in the game against Pitt notwithstanding, but yeah, so far, Jack Plummer's been just the right answer for the 6-1 Cardinals, who are already bowl eligible after kind of all the strife they've had the last couple of years.
Yeah, I'll slightly disagree here a little bit. I think they've won in spite of him at times. I think that he turns the ball over a bit too much and has I
probably should have had him lower on the list.
Yeah.
I probably Graham Mertz above.
But they're
him,
off to a good start, and he's not keeping them from winning games necessarily. But it's been especially with what's going on with Cincinnati, them looking over the other way at what's going on at Louisville is a tough pill to swallow, and that's kind of a double whammy for them. But yeah, he's been okay. Obviously got the last name that a lot of people will recognize. Needs to protect the football, but they've been able to overcome that, so it's worked out well up to this point.
He has a touchdown to interception ratio based on what was Craig saying with 13 to 8 picks, 15 sacks.
Yeah, and he has thrown for a lot of yards. That's true. But yeah, I probably should have put him lower on the list. Number 2, Jacob Zeno at UAB.
I know who's won.
Jacob Zeno's, Trent Dilfer has found, ways to contain that live arm. I know that, Baylor fans remember him and thought that he was going to be the next guy, and then just could not break through. And Blake Shapen was the choice. I think if you flip the situation, I think it would be the same. I think Jacob Zeno would be kind of doing maybe what Blake Shapen's doing here, developed at quarterback a little bit, but not able to, withstand the ridiculous rush that's coming at him. And Blake Shapen would be pretty good at UAB. But I do think it bears note that Jacob Zeno has come into his own at UAB, and Trent Dilfer's found something there in him. Maybe he's just afraid of getting yelled at because Trent Dilfer's a yeller.
I was going to say, man, I don't like his coaching style.
Yeah.
I really am put off by some of what I've seen from Trent Dilfer. But, whatever I guess works for them, although it's not working record-wise for them really at the moment. But, Jacob Zeno's been good. I think that he got a really rude awakening against UTSA.
Yeah.
But he's got some skills. There's no denying that. I just think with the whole situation for Baylor, if you look at, look at what Jacob Zeno's doing, it wouldn't be any different here.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't be any – same lines blocking, same receivers are trying to catch the ball. So I think, it would have washed out about the same. Same thing. Yeah, I think the only argument you could really have made is like Gary Bohannon last year. Like, could they have been better with him at the helm? I think you can make that argument.
That's a fair argument, yep.
They can make that argument, but even looking at Kyron Drones and saying, well, would he be doing better? No, he wouldn't be doing better in this offense the way it is currently constructed. So I'm glad that Drones is getting a great opportunity out there in Blacksburg and doing well with it, and Jacob seems to be doing pretty well. Still got some learning to do, but, getting some good playing time, some good run there with the Blazers, so good for him.
Yep. And number 1, Brady Cook at Mizzou. I think we had, Graham Bronstein, our intern this summer, is a Mizzou student at the J School and going to be really good in this business one day when he gets his shot. But you ask him about who the quarterback was going to be and Mizzou fans were all like, I don't know, this is such a mess. And, but Brady Cook's been really, really good. Really,
I was so impressed with him in that game. Was it really against Kansas State? Tough kid, made some big throws, made some big moments look easy. Yeah, and he's been a little bit banged up at times, but good pick there.
Yeah, no, he's been good. Missouri just keeps winning. Other than, the LSU game. I mean, they're unbeaten, and so, yeah, he's played well. They've obviously got some studs at wide receiver, one stud in particular that helps make a lot of things much easier for your quarterback. But, no, they've been a good story, and just find it interesting that it's kind of been, I don't know, very hit or miss for Missouri the last few years. They jumped right into the SEC pool and won the division right out of the gates, and then kind of got quiet here recently, but they're making some noise once again. And I'm fascinated to see how long they can keep this going. And obviously Georgia's the big bad bully in that division that you'd have to get by. But Missouri's got a good thing going right now.
All right, Paul, very nice. Where would you, if you extended the list, have Kyron Drones?
Virginia Tech's just not very good.
Yeah.
They're okay.
They
they've
like
been
what he's
better,
doing there, though. And again, he
they
decided to leave because they were going through the quarterback, I guess you could say, decisions with Bohannon and Shapen.
I think he will do well there. I think that the style of ball that they're going to play fits him at Virginia Tech, and he's, especially if they let him run a little bit and get that involved, he can really. He's kind of one of those guys on 3rd and 7. You're not going to take your eyes off of because he's going to go run for it.
I would always have liked to see, and Zeno, of course, had the 2 or 3 passes in the Big 12 championship game that exploded his name out there. But good for them. Good for them. They found places where they can be productive, and I hope they both have a really good season before it's all said and done. All right, Garrett Ross, thank you. Jack McKenzie, thank you. Emery Winter, Levi Caraway. We appreciate everybody. We have a huge group, and they do a great job along with our partners with Colt, Ashley, and Brian. Our sponsors every day that bring you what we have and also allow us to have the bells and whistles. And then, of course, you who watch or listen online, Sikkim 365 app or YouTube. Thank you so much in the chat room. Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. Paul's tomorrow, 3 until 6 with this show. Craig and I have a high school game in Bryan. Good night, 365 Sports.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas.